speeding truck blew through the red light, slamming straight into him right on the crosswalk. 26-year-old clerk Izaki Rui spent years grinding through endless shifts, only to meet this abrupt end. A sharp voice tore through the black void, ordering him to wake up immediately. Gasping in shock, Izaki Rui bolted upright. Endless white space stretched in all directions, with an ethereal girl floating right before him. Without missing a beat, she broke the news. The truck killed him, and his next life awaited in another dimension. His desperate pleas for answers got brushed aside because she was running tight on time. She rushed through the basics instead. The world of Ruble was medieval, packed with monsters and magic, and he would be born into high nobility. Before he could protest, she shoved him into a glowing cube and waved him off to his new life with a cheerful grin. Opening his eyes again, he heard a motherly whisper naming him Elthid Adstram. Faces crowded around the crib, marveling at his pure white hair and striking violet eyes. Nuzzling him against her cheek, his mother whispered that heaven had gifted him immense power. That gentle embrace etched itself into memory as his earliest moment in this new world. Years slipped by, and despite his wish for a quiet life, everyone around the estate began leaning on him. Entering his bedroom to help him dress, the maid Radia called out, sending a jolt through his mind. Elthid jerked back in protest, barking that he was far too old to have someone dress him. Panic set in. How did he recognize her name, and why did she carry no Japanese traits at all? Staring at his tiny toddler palms, shock paralyzed him. Why was he in a child's body, fluent in a foreign tongue? A distant voice echoed across his mind, reminding him that this realm was called Ruble. Every rational instinct screamed that this had to be impossible. His knees buckled, leaving a frantic Radia to scoop him up just before he hit the floor. Cold sweat washed over him as everything rushed back. The red light, the brutal crash, and the glowing cube. Daylight woke him the following morning. The truth crystallized, that divine power had reincarnated him as 3-year-old Elthid Adstram, second son of the frontier Marcus. Heat flushed his cheeks upon noticing the maid had changed him into pajamas after he passed out. Stepping forward on small feet, he approached the grand, full-length mirror. Memory overload had knocked him out the previous day, prompting Radia to tuck him into bed. Looking into the glass, Izaki Rui felt his adult mind intact, even as the 3-year-old Elthid's instincts took root. His past life remained crystal clear, yet toddler Elthid's earlier days felt hazy and distant. He still recalled that radiant girl whose presence hummed with undeniable divine authority. Contemplating his situation, he raised a tiny hand to inspect his fingers. The surrounding stone architecture confirmed the medieval setting where magic reigned supreme. An adorable young face peered back from the polished glass, erasing any lingering doubt about his rebirth. Thrusting an arm forward with bold resolve, he belted out the incantation for a fireball. A creak from the doorway cut him short as the young maid peered inside. Raw willpower alone produced nothing, teaching Elthid Adstram that true magic demanded vivid imagination. Focusing on searing flames with closed eyes, he sparked crackling embers across his fingertips. A flush of embarrassment washed over him for striking such a theatrical pose. Right before the terrified maid, a roaring sphere of flame burst into the air. She froze in total shock, stunned that a mere toddler could command such power. Fire spread toward the furniture, forcing the panicked maid to shield him and scramble for a water spell. Elthid Adstram pumped his fists in victory, thrilled that his first magical attempt had worked. A cascade of water crashed from the ceiling before Radia grabbed Elthid Adstram by the shoulders. The deluge cleared, leaving behind drifting steam and a dripping, bewildered boy. Soaked to the skin, he squirmed in her hold, insisting he was fine and urging Radia to change first. Radia quickly hurried Elthid Adstram off to change, brushing aside his awkward protests. She inspected him anxiously from head to toe, checking for burns or scratches. The bedroom door clicked shut behind him. Stepping out into the hallway, he paused and glanced back at the room. Pure exhilaration rushed through him over having cast real magic with his own hands. Another maid knocked and urged Elthid Adstram to dress quickly, warning that Zeland Adstram was waiting. Stripping off the wet clothes, he beamed with joy after achieving his lifelong fantasy. He eased the heavy oak door open with cautious hands. Inside the lavish study, the entire household stood assembled. Lufend Adstram and Serenze Adstram greeted him warmly, leaving Elthid Adstram awestruck by his gorgeous family. Closing closing a thick tome. Zeland Adstram sternly announced that Radia had already reported the incident. Gleaming golden fixtures on the grand doorway shone bright enough to dazzle Elthid Adstrom. Dread gripped his chest over the burned bedsheets, recalling Zeland Adstrom as an intimidating patriarch. A deep voice broke the silence, demanding if he had truly cast spells inside the bedroom. His heart hammered in his chest from raw nervous tension. A heavy, breathless silence hung between them. He whispered, a tiny, trembling yes. An uneasy stillness gripped the room, bowing low in panic. Elthid Adstram rambled apologies, only for Zeland Adstram to roar in triumphant laughter. Zeland Adstrom proudly declared Elthid Adstrom a genius, leaving Lufend Adstrom and Serinze Adstrom wide-eyed with shock. Caught off guard, Elthid Adstrom blinked in dazed bewilderment as he tried to process the cheers. Both siblings charged in, wrapping him in a crush of hugs and cheers. Their eyes sparkled with unfiltered pride and admiration. Even if these relatives still felt unfamiliar, their heartfelt affection dissolved his doubts. Arnevi Adstrom scooped him into a fierce embrace as the pride of the house, leaving Elthid Adstrom to melt in her arms. To his complete surprise, not a single face in the room holds any anger toward him. Arnevi drops to her knees with worry, asking if he is hurt, and he assures her his excitement got out of hand. Pulling him into a fierce embrace, she squeezes so hard that Zeland must step in, though Elthid cherishes every second. Her fingers stroke his hair, showering him with praise for his sharp memory and effortless mastery of magic. Hearing her talk of extraordinary power leaves Elthid quietly assessing the strange reality of his new body. Chin resting in hand, Zeland recalls an old legend claiming those born with white hair and violet eyes hold divine might. Asked about the blazing fireball, Rhodia spreads her arms wide to prove the blast was colossal. Across the room, the adults debate the bizarre spell, leaving Elthid to suspect his former life unlocked this mana. Blushing with bashful pride, Rhodia adds that her young master is blossoming into a remarkable prodigy. A bright smile breaks across his face amid their warmth, tasting true childhood joy for the first time. Fond memories wash over Rhodia, recalling how the sweet boy worried she would freeze after dousing the blaze. Lufend and Serinze crowd around him, cheering his rapid progress in speech and steps as past life memories stir. Servants and family pamper him endlessly, celebrating every tiny milestone from rolling over to holding a spoon. Harboring the mind of a 26-year-old makes this affection slightly embarrassing, yet the tenderness melts his heart. Gratitude fills Elthid for this loving household, especially when Serinze beckons him outside to display her magic. From the distant shadows, the witch watches them race toward the fountain, whispering that Elthid has finally awakened his memories. Channeling mana into his palm produces only a tiny dark ember, prompting Serinze to laugh and urge him to practice more. A shadow of profound sorrow settles deep within her eyes. Raising one slender hand toward the heavens, she whispers that this world is far too cruel. 2 years slip by, and 5-year-old Elthid kneels within the grand cathedral for his sacred baptism. Lifting his arms aloft, the priest invokes the heavens to bestow sacred power upon the child. A blinding haze washes over Elthid's mind, mirroring the exact sensation from the day of his reincarnation. Radiant light shatters the gloom, unveiling his divine blessing from the goddess of creation, Reincarnator. Fluttering his eyes open, he meets the anxious faces of his family as they breathe a collective sigh of relief. Fainting during the rite is hardly unusual, and Lufend and Serinze boast they passed out just as dramatically. Lufend asks how long he stayed unconscious, and Elthid points out that the priest has already departed. Questions immediately fly regarding his new power, probing how deeply it alters his mind and body. The entire family falls silent, hanging on his every word. Both siblings pull him into a fierce hug, declaring how wildly proud they are of their little brother. Concealing his past life, Elthid reveals his blessing from the goddess of creation, leaving everyone stunned. Arnevi gently explains that most children only awaken wind or water, making his divine gift exceptional. Yet hearing them boast about their own mastery over swords and elements, Elthid realizes no one here is ordinary. A wry smile slips out as he tries to convince himself that other households must be equally eccentric. Zeland weaves a teleportation circle to warp them to the royal gates, leaving young Elthid unaware of how bizarre the realm views House Adstrom. Gazing up at the colossal royal palace, Elthid stands slack-jawed, utterly captivated by its majestic scale. Past the armored sentries at the gates, Zeland Adstrom explained that this grand palace served as the true heart of Adlard. Adlard stood as one of the continent's 3 superpowers, with House Adstrom guarding the border as frontier dukes. Inside the opulent ballroom, noble children who had just completed their baptism gathered for a grand banquet. Zeland Adstrom warned his son to avoid suspicious guests, though Elthid Adstrom felt ready after yesterday's etiquette drills. The moment the heavy doors parted, dozens of staring aristocrats froze Elthid Adstrom in his tracks. Zirinze Adstrom gently squeezed his hand, urging him to breathe and confessing she nearly fainted on her first visit. Their steady warmth reassured him, since Lufend Adstrom and Serinze Adstrom had long grown used to the royal court. A herald's booming voice announced the arrival of House Adstrom above the grand stairs, sending hushed murmurs across the room. Reassured by his siblings, Elthid Adstrom relaxed his shoulders and offered a polite smile to the watching crowd. Envious whispers rippled through the crowd, praising the ducal family's striking looks, vast lands, and divine blessings. A commanding shout pierced the air, ordering absolute silence throughout the grand hall. An announcer stepped forward at the top of the stairs, welcoming the 5-year-olds and opening the celebration under the god's grace. Hushed reverence filled the room when King Wald descended the grand staircase flanked by his royal guard, steeling his nerves with a polite smile. Elthid Adstrom stepped into the crowd to begin greeting noble guests. The sheer presence of the monarch commanded awe, silencing the bustling castle without uttering a single word. Nearby, another young noble stood spellbound, unable to tear his eyes away from the majestic ruler. A sharp chill ran down Elthid Adstrom's spine when King Wald's piercing gaze locked straight onto him. Shock rooted the boy to the floor. His brother's old advice flashed into mind. Run the other way, the second you spot a creep. King Wald kept staring down intently, making Elthid Adstrom mentally scramble to recall if he had committed any blunder. Only after the monarch turned away did Elthid Adstrom exhale, shaking off the suffocating pressure. Slipping through the throng of nobles, he prayed the king would never single him out like that again. A grueling marathon of formal bows and shallow greetings with pompous nobles quickly turned into pure exhaustion. A sympathetic noblewoman handed the exhausted child a cup of water, lamenting the harsh expectations placed on young heirs. Collapsing onto a lounge sofa, Elthid Adstrom recalled how mandatory office parties in his past life drained his soul the exact same way. The brief respite shattered when a royal attendant announced that King Wald summoned Elthid Adstrom for a private audience. Down the private corridor, Elthid Adstrom spotted Zeland Adstrom speaking in hushed tones with an attendant. Zeland Adstrom pressed a hand to his face in exasperation when a brazen voice behind the door called the king an idiot. Facing the ornate doorway, Elthid Adstrom could only wonder what kind of mess he had been dragged into. King Wald stepped out to meet them, confirming the astonishing fact that Zeland Adstrom was the monarch's actual brother. As Zeland Adstrom scolded his royal sibling for disrupting the celebration, Elthid Adstrom stepped forward with a flawless bow. With an amused grin, King Wald asked if young Elthid Adstrom was truly a boy. Zeland Adstrom bristled at the absurd question, leaving his son blinking in sheer disbelief. Chuckling at the boy's striking beauty, King Wald turned serious to inquire about Elthid Adstrom's rare white hair. Elthid Adstrom froze, caught completely off guard by the king's curiosity. King Wald explained that an overwhelming surge of magic had bleached the boy's hair completely white. Those striking violet eyes sparked genuine fascination in King Wald. Elthid Adstrom recalled his past life on Earth, realizing how much richer and stranger this world was. Though King Wald dismissed it as mere gossip, Elthid Adstrom grew anxious trying to decipher the true motives. The sovereign leaned right into the boy's face, forcing him to flinch from the abrupt closeness. With a sigh of relief, the elder brother ordered a guard to escort rescued Elthid Adstrom straight to the Great Hall. Curiosity got the better of King Wald as he reached down to stroke the child's hair. Ancient royal legends soon entered the conversation as he reminded his brother of their family lore. Halting irritably by the doors. The elder demanded an immediate explanation. Old prophecies claimed that only the saint bore pure white hair and violet eyes, sent by heaven to bless their realm. Real politics turned such sacred figures into pawns, prompting the family to hide the child far from the capital for 5 years. That remark struck a painfully raw nerve. Though his brother curtly denied any divine status, King Wald simply chuckled and praised the child's breathtaking beauty. Castle whispers spread the rumor that Elthid Adstrom's unique appearance was nothing more than a coincidence. Remembering the humble bed where he was born, the boy trusted the blood bond with his family. Stepping into the hallway, another handsome youth emerged in lavish royal attire. A puzzled expression crossed the newcomer's face as he glanced around the corridor. Flocks of young court ladies instantly swarmed around him. His charming smile instantly sent the noble beauties into a deep blush. Watching the pack of noblewomen, Elthid Adstrom shuddered as they circled like hungry wolves on the hunt. Parting the crowd, Prince Lucia stepped forward with a gentle smile to invite him aside. Polite refusals proved useless once the prince firmly seized his hand. His Highness enthusiastically proposed bonding as cousins, leaving Elthid Adstrom utterly speechless. Insisting that they drop all formalities, the prince asked to be called simply Lucia. Trapped hand in hand in the middle of the hall, Elthid Adstrom frantically wondered why this disaster fell on him. Reluctantly uttering the name Prince Lucia, he wished for nothing more than to regain his freedom. That relentless royal pressure felt all too familiar, echoing the bold nature of King Wald. Softly praising Elthid Adstrom's beauty, Prince Lucia made his cousin's eyes pop in shock. Pure fascination filled Prince Lucia as he admired the snow-white hair and deep violet eyes. Gazing intently into his face, Prince Lucia eagerly urged him to share more about himself. Only one panicked thought pounded in Elthid Adstrom's head. Did Prince Lucia mistake him for a girl? Fear took over, reminding the boy of his father's strict warning to flee at the first chance. Jealous whispers from the court ladies confirmed the dread. The prince was flirting with him, completely unaware he was a boy. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Elthid Adstrom tearfully blurted an apology and bolted, leaving the youth stunned amid the crowd. A worried girl called out after him to check on him, but his high society debut had already ended in total disaster. That same night in a quiet study, a nobleman pressed for details about the banquet, prompting his dark-haired daughter to blush and confess her blossoming feelings. Thrusting his hand forward with fierce intent, Elthid Adstrom unleashed a high-speed water cannon. The pressurized sphere slammed into a horned beast at blinding speed, sending it crashing backward with a pained howl. Deep inside the treacherous demon forest bordering his estate, the young prodigy pushed his daily training to the absolute limit. Lowering his arms, he let out a long breath to steady his racing pulse. Arnevi Adstrom emerged from the dense thicket, dragging a massive bear carcass, cheerfully announcing 800 more beasts remained on today's quota. To clear the absurd quota faster, he sought out pockets of dense mana where wild predators congregated in packs. His mother's brutal training regimen bordered on madness, yet he had long adapted to her impossible expectations. A cavern entrance loomed ahead, its pitch-black depths glowing with dozens of hungry, predatory eyes. Magical doctrine divided spells into 4 core elements alongside neutral energy, demanding total precision from the caster. Skipping lengthy incantations, he visualized his spell as a pressurized magical shotgun loaded with lethal water slugs. A devastating barrage ripped through the cavern gloom, instantly obliterating the swarm of winged fiends. Maintaining strict control over his reserve remained vital, since complete mana depletion meant instant death. His vast ocean of mana showed zero signs of drying up, proving his divine blessing truly knew no limits. Shouting across the woods, Lufend Adstrom burst through the brush, only to catch his foot on a jagged rock and lose his balance. The older boy crashed face first onto the dirt, sending Elthid Adstrom sprinting forward in immediate alarm. Channeling pure emerald light through outstretched palms, he sealed the bloody scrape on his brother's arm in a single breath. Lufend Adstrom pulled his little brother into a fierce hug, utterly speechless at how easily the boy wielded advanced restorative magic. A quiet confession about secret practice left his brother staring in awe at pristine skin without a single blemish left. The elder siblings traded stunned whispers, recalling how many years of grueling study it had taken them to cast a basic mend. Zir Zirinze Adstrom showered him with praise as they headed back to House Adstrom, where today's brutal drills finally came to an end. Inside the bustling kitchen, Arnevi Adstrom and Radia were already hard at work, carving up freshly hunted monster meat for dinner. Peeking through the doorframe, the siblings shuddered at the sight of their blood-splattered mother carving a beast with an ominous grin. Steaming platters filled the grand dining table, prompting the ravenous children to dig into the feast without hesitation. Perfectly seared cuts of beast meat practically melted on the tongue with rich, savory juices. Savory flavors exploded as Elthid Adstram savored another generous bite from his plate. Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom grinned from ear to ear, heaping praise onto the incredible meal. Warm laughter filled the hall as the entire household gave heartfelt thanks for the hearty feast. Slicing into a tender steak, Elthid Adstrom reflected on his past life, grateful that Rubel offered delicacies Earth could never match. Arnevi Adstrom slid the prime cut toward him with a warm smile, reminding him that he had hunted down this particular monster himself, commending his tireless discipline throughout today's brutal drills. His mother watched him happily clear every last scrap from his bowl. Zirinze Adstrom proudly revealed his breakthrough with healing magic, sparking an astonished gasp from Zeland Adstrom and eager questions from their mother. Gazing at the bright smiles around the table, Elthid Adstrom silently vowed to protect this peaceful family warmth at all costs. After giving sincere thanks for dinner, he learned from Zeland Adstrom that research materials had arrived in the study. A brand new passion had seized his curiosity lately, sparking an unstoppable drive to craft and experiment deep into the night. Clutching the coveted box of ingredients from the study, Elthid Adstrom thanks Zeland Adstrom with a bright grin. At last, the ultimate pastime of another world is within reach, brewing potions and crafting magical medicine. To start, he prepares a dried sprig of rare herbs to serve as the brew's foundation. Absolute focus takes over, channeling his total concentration into the task. The cauldron bubbles vigorously the moment the ingredients drop in, swallowing the medicinal herbs. Gripping a large wooden ladle, El steadily stirs the steaming brew with measured strokes. Hands outstretched over the swirling mixture, he gently channels his own mana into the pot. The broth flashes a vibrant new hue, sparking pure delight as his first potion comes to life. Green liquid simmers in the iron pot, and the ladle scoops up another batch of magical leaves. Holding the raw ingredients with a confident smile, El readies himself to repeat the triumph. His face beams over a flawless vial. Early misfires are behind him, and every batch turns out perfect. Opening his dimensional storage with a single flick, he stashes the entire batch of vials inside. Such early alchemy stuns his companions, who doubted a child could brew genuine medicine from book theory alone. Zeland Adstrom proudly displays that first potion on his office shelf like a prized trophy. Down in the kitchen, the maid Radia blinks in surprise, wondering why the young master needs the hearth. A sheepish grin slips out as he surveys the massive mountain of potions, realizing he went overboard. Radia mentions monster part shipments, instantly catching the boy's sharp attention. Pitying up around the stove, he immediately offers to help with her daily chores. She gives a warm smile, explaining that all harvested monster parts are shipped to the Capital Guild. The revelation that real adventurer guilds exist in this world sets his heart racing. A clever scheme takes shape. An organization trading monster loot will surely buy his potion stockpile. Under the cozy blankets, he drifts to sleep, smiling about tomorrow's guild trip. After assuring Radia the room is clean, El heads to bed imagining fierce monster hunts. A 5-year-old child would get thrown out of the guild instantly, making an adult disguise essential. Morning sunlight washes over the estate roof to the gentle hum of birdsong. Steel fills his gaze as he locks eyes with his reflection. Channeling growth magic, he envisions a taller frame, broader shoulders, and fine adult attire. The spell takes hold in a flash, morphing El into a tall, dashing young man. To seal the disguise, he pulls a cap down low, tucking away his distinctive hair. A quiet sigh escapes him in the mirror. The disguise is far too pretty instead of rugged and battle-hardened. Shrugging off doubts, he chants teleportation and dissolves into thin air toward the capital. The bedroom door swings open for playtime, but his friend finds only an empty room. Majestic stone spires of the royal capital rise high beneath a cloudless sky. Stepping onto the bustling avenue, L stands awestruck by the sheer scale of the city. Life teems in every direction, and roadside shop displays draw him in with racks of gleaming weapons. Hurrying toward the guild, Elthid Adstrom crashes straight into a red-haired stranger who offers a warm smile and steadies him. The friendly girl notices his confusion, pointing out the route with a smile and offering to guide him. A cheerful farewell leaves Elthid Adstrom standing before the guild's massive timber hall. Tension grips his chest as his fingers wrap around the iron handle and push the heavy doors open. Inside, the great hall erupts with raucous chatter, dozens of hardened fighters locking sharp eyes onto him. Witnessing such raw chaos commands real respect for King Wald, who united these formidable forces under one crown. Gleaming steel strapped across every warrior's back fills Elthid Adstrom with pure excitement. A startled receptionist halts his advance, her surprised expression stopping him in his tracks. Blushing, Elthid Adstrom stammers an apology for startling her, blaming his first-time visit jitters. Relieved by his polite tone, she gives an approving nod and guides him deeper inside. A loud, cheerful greeting booming from behind the counter nearly makes him jump out of his skin. Receptionist Arnett brightly lays out the guild rules, urging him to take today's entry exam. Eager to prove himself, he asks to sell his potions, and the staff agrees to appraise them during the trial. Free travel required no testing, yet hunting dangerous monsters strictly demanded an official adventurer license. Clutching the signed parchment, he dashes out the doorway before the ticking clock runs out. Left behind on Arnett's counter sits the exam sheet alongside an exquisite vial of glowing liquid. Surrounding colleagues whisper in curiosity as she lifts the delicate glass to inspect its radiant contents. Flashing a confident smile, she channels mana to cast an appraisal spell on the strange draft. The magical readout flashes before her eyes, freezing her in place with her jaw dropped wide. Snapping back to reality, Arnett sprints down the hall, shouting that Guildmaster Belza must inspect this immediately. Outside the guild entrance, examiners bellow the official rules for all registered candidates. Marching forward with his sheet, Elthid Adstrom reads the terms: hunt monsters in the western forest and bring back proof of kill. Collecting proof puzzles him, leaving him wondering if he should drag entire monster carcasses back into town. The proctors grant barely 1 hour, warning that cheating or ambushing rivals brings immediate expulsion. Looking up from the parchment, he realizes with a sinking feeling that he took a wrong turn and lost his way. A grim realization creeps into his mind. Towering gray walls loom on every side, utterly unfamiliar and cold. Trusting in blind luck, Elthid Adstrom casts a teleport spell despite having no exact coordinates for the exit. Around him stand deserted houses. The crude map misled him, and no passers-by remain to ask for directions. With strict orders to report to the testing grounds at once, he lets out another resigned sigh. In a single bound, he darts forward, tearing through the dense woodland thickets at breakneck speed. A bright smile spreads across his face as the wind whips past. Just as relief washes over him, a terrified shriek echoes through the trees nearby. Seconds later, a fleeing girl bursts through the bushes and crashes right into him at full tilt. Battered and weeping, she clutches Elthid Adstrom's sleeve, desperately pleading for her life. Before any words could leave his mouth, a savage roar tore through the brush, casting a colossal shadow over them both. Stepping out from the trees was a towering chimera, with the heads of a lion and a goat, radiating pure bloodlust. As the two-headed beast charged, Elthid Adstrom triggered body reinforcement and scooped his companion into his arms. Calling out a quick apology for grabbing her, he saw the terrified girl point behind them, right at the monster snapping at their heels. The beast closed the distance in an instant, forcing Elthid Adstrom to pivot hard and throw up a protective barrier, slamming full force into the magical shield. The beast shattered the ground into shards of flying rock as the girl screamed. Rebounding off the barrier, the chimera crashed back into the dense brush. Tension gripped Elthid Adstrom as his mind raced, questioning if a guild exam genuinely threw applicants against such lethal beasts. Condensing water in his palms, he remembered that his training bouts with Arnevi Adstrom had pitted him only against weak beasts. Beside him, the girl clutched her skirt in terror, her knuckles white as he caught sight of her trembling hands. He fired off a volley of high-pressure water spheres, yet the agile beast leapt aside without taking a scratch. Snarling in fury, The predator lunged right back into the fray. Despite its colossal frame, the creature moved with terrifying speed. A crushing paw strike smashed down against the magical dome. Fractures spiderwebbed across the shield as the defense gave way. Convinced direct combat was futile, Elthid Adstram resolved to stall the beast with magic and teleport them both to safety. The horned terror charged once more, compelling them to brace behind another layer of reinforced warding. Stone projectiles slammed into the monster with heavy thuds, only stoking its rage. Taking decisive action, he unleashed a wide-area wind spell to distract the predator and buy a window for escape. Instead of a diversion, an overwhelming gale blade ripped clean through the chimera, decapitating it on the spot. Both of them froze on the spot, utterly paralyzed by the gruesome spectacle. Elthid Adstram stared down at his own palms in sheer disbelief at the destructive force he had just unleashed. Bringing down such a beast felt unreal to him, and the girl stood beside him in silent awe of his raw power. Once the initial shock faded, her wounded legs buckled beneath her from sheer exhaustion. A nervous tug at his cap helped him rationalize that the monster simply had weak defense. He turned back to check on his companion without wasting a second. Rushing to her side with anxious questions, he heard her softly rasp that terror had drained every ounce of her strength. Down on the dirt, she gasped for air in ragged, shallow bursts. With the danger finally gone, she let out the breath trapped in her chest. Wiping away tears of relief, she offered a genuine smile, thankful that her rescuer had emerged without a scratch. Giving his name as Elthid Adstram, he shook hands with Claire, who answered timidly as he plotted to conceal his true identity. Claire thanked him warmly for guiding her earlier, but Elthid Adstram waved it off, insisting that slaying the beast was no trouble. Spotting her fresh wound, he handed over a vial of rare healing potion, leaving Claire utterly stunned by the lavish gift. Her grateful smile made Elthid Adstram avert his eyes in bashful awkwardness. A single cautious sip made her freeze as an astonishing surge of vitality washed straight through her body. Her eyes lit up in pure wonder as the potion knit every wound closed and wiped away all her exhaustion. Taking the opportunity, Elthid Adstram asked to claim the slain beast, and she happily agreed after witnessing him bring it down. Claire pressed him to take payment for the rare brew, but he waved her off, hiding the fact that he brewed it himself. He turned to bid farewell and leave, only for the girl to call out his name in a soft voice. Pausing in his tracks, Elthid Adstram decided to harvest the kill first, snapping open his dimensional storage with a swift gesture. Rather than hauling the colossal carcass, he sliced off the horned head and stashed it inside the void. Claire smiled sheepishly and asked for directions back to the city, catching him completely off guard. Elthid Adstram explained that a warp portal could take her straight back, yet her blank stare revealed complete confusion. Blushing red, the girl admitted the fight had left her hopelessly lost, prompting a helpless sigh from Elthid Adstram, who had no map either. A warm smile crossed Elthid Adstram's face as he waved farewell, watching his companion step through the shimmering gateway. On her final step, the clumsy girl swung her leg and delivered a sharp kick right to his shin. Horrified by her blunder, she poked her head back through the rift in sheer panic. With an easy wave, he urged her through, earning an embarrassed squeak of gratitude. Right then, the truth struck her like lightning. Elthid Adstram called out cheerfully, promising to meet her back at the guild hall. Her face softened into a bright grin, shouting back heartfelt thanks before vanishing into the light. Landing on the other side, she gasped in disbelief that he had cast chantless spatial magic. A piercing shriek from magical loudspeakers rattled through the forest canopy. Wandering down the dirt trail, Elthid Adstram figured he needed one more kill to guarantee passing the exam. Tree-mounted speakers blared to life, broadcasting an urgent announcement to all candidates. Hearing the trial had ended ahead of schedule, he stumbled in shock and bolted toward the exit. Uproar filled the guild's main hall as rowdy adventurers traded wild rumors about the abrupt cutoff. The Grand Guild headquarters loomed over the plaza, ready to inaugurate its newest recruits. Hopeful applicants packed the street outside, forming a massive line to submit their trophies. Seeing others hand over modest fangs and scales, Elthid Adstram grew anxious about what he had brought. The warrior ahead presented claws and horns from a C-rank monster, earning an instant pass. Stepping up to the counter, Elthid Adstram innocently asked if a whole monster head qualified certified as proof. The receptionist blinked in confusion, unable to tell if he was joking. With an innocent grin, Elthid Adstram slammed a massive horned beast head right onto the wooden counter. Gasps erupted through the line, making him realize he had gone far overboard once again. Arnett hurried over to investigate the commotion, freezing solid the moment she saw the prize. Clutching her head in disbelief, she screamed that no solo novice could possibly slay such a monster. Recognizing Elthid Adstram as the boy who brewed impossible potions, she demanded an immediate explanation. Arnett sucked in a ragged breath to steady her rapidly fraying nerves. His excuse that the creature felt weak only infuriated her even more. A nervous shuffle betrayed his dread. Admitting he had merely taken a wrong turn was not an option. Elthid Adstram timidly explained that the teleportation gate had dropped him straight into the monster's lair. Through the guild hall doors stepped Belza, the imposing elf whose legendary party once shook the entire continent. Gasps and shouts rippled through the crowd, stunned that a single person had slain such a massive beast. Excited whispers swelled the moment the adventurers recognized the guildmaster standing before them. His pulse hammered against his ribs upon realizing the sheer authority towering over him. Belza stepped closer with a piercing gaze, asking if this mayhem was his doing, and he offered a sheepish nod. The desk clerk pointed straight at him, confirming that his bizarre potion had triggered the entire commotion. Locking eyes with him, Belza demanded a private audience behind closed doors. He trailed behind her in quiet obedience, bracing his nerves for a brutal scolding. Instead of fury and reprimands, a heavy stack of gleaming gold coins clattered across the desk. A strained smile froze on Elthid Adstram's face, bewildered by such unexpected generosity. Belza leaned back calmly, offering an outrageous price of 10 gold coins for every single bottle. Her opening appraisal hit like a thunderbolt, 10 gold coins on the spot for his craft. Total shock paralyzed him, knowing that even a single gold piece amounted to a small fortune. An enigmatic smirk parted the elf's lips, clearly entertained by his stunned reaction. Having never handled his own purchases, he had zero sense of the local market. Praising the brew's extraordinary purity, Belza skyrocketed her offer straight to 100 gold. The room spun around Elthid Adstram. His stunned silence had been mistaken for shrewd bargaining. Right as he celebrated this windfall in his head, a firm knock rattled the office door. Mistaking his pause for hesitation, she moved to offer even more, but he hastily accepted. Arnett stepped into the office, carrying a fresh tray of steaming hot tea. Elthid Adstram accepted the warm cup with a polite bow. The sharp tension in Arnett's stare put him on guard, dripping with cold suspicion. A dry cough from Arnett snapped the conversation back to official guild business. Belza gave a curt nod and ordered the guild registration exam to begin at once. Reaching out an open hand, Elthid Adstram summoned his spatial magic item box before their wide eyes. Arnett backed Elthid Adstram against the wall, demanding how he pulled a colossal monster out of thin air. The revelation caused Belza to crush her teacup in a grip of pure shock, startling the room. Spatial storage demanded massive mana reserves, yet he had triggered the spell without a single chant. Belza sprang from her chair, looming directly over the bewildered Elthid Adstram. True sorcery required invoking elemental spirits and reciting intricate incantations. Elthid Adstram blinked in genuine confusion, assuming calling out the spell's name was plenty. A stunned silence dropped over the office at his casual answer. To prove her point, Belza conjured a massive sphere of swirling water directly in her palm. Belza explains that high-tier spatial magic should be impossible to cast without rigorous preparation. Casting basic water chantless demands years of training, proving to Elthid Adstram that he knows nothing about this world's limits. Memories of Arnavi Adstram teaching him silent spells surface, contrasting with Zeland Adstram, who always chanted to teleport. A sly grin crosses Belza's face as she jokingly asks him to share the secret whenever he figures it out. When Elthid asks why it works effortlessly for him, the elf genuinely admits she has no clue. Turning to a terrified Arnett, Belza firmly states that the boy's guild registration must be completely re-evaluated. Sinking into the plush couch, Elthid breathes a quiet sigh of relief that his power pulled through. Defeating such a high-tier monster guarantees his acceptance, leaving only the question of which rank fits him best. Caught off guard by her words, Elthid hurriedly presses for details on what she means. Arnett Arnett gently clarifies that newcomers cannot start above C rank, and he readily agrees to the temporary rating. Approaching the glowing glass orb on the pedestal, he slowly raises his palm above the device. A polite request from the clerk directs him to touch the surface, so his mana imprints onto the card. A deafening crack echoes through the room as the crystal orb violently splits in half under his touch. Fractures rip through the enchanted glass, leaving it split down the center. Elthid freezes in place, staring wide-eyed at the shattered remnants. Overwhelming mana can crack measuring devices, yet his aura pulverized the artifact into complete ruin. Belza breaks the stunned silence by bluntly noting the device is destroyed. Though Arnett tries brushing it off as a clerical error, Elthid frantically offers his potion reward to pay for the damage. Bowing deeply before the two women, he offers desperate apologies and promises full reimbursement. Flushed red with embarrassment, he finally takes hold of his newly issued adventurer card. Glancing down at the silver plate, he finds a glaring question mark etched where a rank should be. Belza hands over the final document, assuring him that his official registration went through without a hitch. Both women track his every move with unmasked curiosity and intrigue. Holding the plate high in the air, he secures his official proof as an adventurer in this fantasy realm. A slender hand reaches out from the guildmaster in a formal gesture of respect. A warm smile lights up her face as she welcomes him into the ranks of the guild. Elthid grips her hand with deep gratitude, leaving Arnett beaming with approval from across the desk. Heavy iron gates swing shut behind him with a low metallic screech. Against the darkening dusk sky, the grand estate of House Adstrom rises majestically into view. Pulling off his cap, he lets out an exhausted sigh as pitch-black night settles over the grounds. Returning home immediately after the guild was the original plan, but complications derailed his schedule. Pocketing some cash and banking the rest, he decides to sort out his spatial storage loot tomorrow. Teleporting straight into his bedroom would invite suspicion, so he chooses to sneak through the front door. Hesitating before the towering entrance, a nervous swallow betrays his fear of getting caught. Disaster strikes at the grand staircase where Zeland Adstrom awaits, radiating a suffocating, lethal aura. A forced smile stretched across Zeland Adstrom's face as he demanded in an icy tone where his son had been hiding. Breaking into a cold sweat, Elthid tried to bluff his way out, claiming he had only wandered into the nearby woods. Zeland folded his arms in silence, his crushing stare unraveling the boy's frantic stammering. Outsmarting his father was impossible, leaving him with only one desperate move. Pure panic flared through Elthid as his father narrowed his eyes in razor-sharp suspicion. In sheer desperation, El shouted that he had mastered a new spell, stunning both his father and the young servants nearby. The young servants rushed over cheering with excitement, though Zeland still pressed for why he had snuck outside. The resulting commotion gave Elthid his only chance to escape punishment. Eyes sparkling with wonder, the children pumped their fists and begged to see the new magic. Elthid unleashed the spell, sparking thrilled squeals as his flustered father failed to contain the uproar. As the kids showered him with praise, Zeland watched from the side with tense fascination. The sheer depth of his son's mana sent a thrill of shock through the marquee. Amid the joyful cheers, Zeland's brow furrowed, determined to question El without prying ears. Heavy hands clamped onto the young runaway's shoulders, freezing them cold with a stern rebuke. Laughter broke the tension instead, and the curious girl immediately asked to inspect the spell up close. Just like that, Elthid's magical display spared everyone from a harsh scolding for sneaking out. Returning to the royal capital in his older form, he strode briskly down the bustling streets. Having left a decoy under his bedsheets to dodge Zeland's wrath, Elthid had coin in his pocket to explore the capital before visiting the guild. Juicy skewers sizzled over the blazing grill, filling the air with mouth-watering smoke. That rich aroma instantly pulled Elthid toward the vendor's stall. Flashing a wide grin, the vendor offered a sizzling sample, praising the roasted monster meat as a local delicacy. Striking before the appetite cooled, the merchant offered a full skewer for just 1 copper coin. Elthid placed an order on the spot, glad he had broken his gold coins into pocket change beforehand. Earning his adventurer rank made him crave a real weapon, yet he had to return before anyone noticed his absence. Watching the meat crisp over the flames made his mouth water in pure anticipation. Holding the piping hot skewer, he caught himself before getting distracted from his true objective. The sprawling capital quickly dampened his momentum, leaving him unsure where to start hunting for a smith. Politely asking for the best weapon shops in town, Elthid was met with a stunned stare as the vendor asked if such a pretty lady was an adventurer. Red-faced with adoration, the stall owner practically melted before the radiant beauty. A flustered smile broke out as Elthid corrected the man, stating he was actually a guy. Even with growth magic, he was mistaken for a girl, though the vendor kindly pointed him to a dwarven smith in a nearby alley. Tossing in an extra skewer for free, the vendor advised securing guild connections, an impossible task for a fresh rookie. He explained that the smith had a foul temper and turned away anyone without a referral, offering his own help to bridge the gap. Elthid's eyes lit up with genuine gratitude at the unexpected favor. Taking a savory bite of meat, he resolved to waste no time and head straight for the guild. The free treat disappears in seconds, and the merchant beams at the kid's massive appetite. Still, a tiny sting lingers, since the cheerful vendor clearly mistook him for a pretty girl. Just ahead rises the two-story stone headquarters of the Adventurer Guild. A parting wave follows him down the street, along with one last shout of "Farewell, little lady." Crossing the threshold, a sharp, desperate cry for help instantly cuts through the hall. Heavy wooden doors creak wide open into the bustling guild hall. An arrogant brute grips a young girl's wrist by force, ignoring her struggles as onlookers turn away. Tears well in her eyes, and Elle instantly recognizes Claire, his old partner from the guild exam. Stepping right between them without hesitation, he orders the stunned thug to let her go. Startled by the sharp voice behind him, the hulking brute whips around in disbelief. Elle stands firm before him with cool composure, repeating his demand to back off. Snorting in contempt, the giant flexes his B-rank status and mocks the scrawny kid. Smirking, the arrogant fool throws an arm around Elle, mistaking him for another pretty maiden. Fatal mistake. Growling that he is a boy, Elle fires up body reinforcement with a terrifying glare. Grabbing the brute by the collar, he slams him into the floorboards, shattering them to splinters. Complete, dead silence drops over the entire guild hall. A cold panic grips Elthid Adstrom as he stares at the unconscious thug, terrified the guild will banish him for excessive force. Rubbing the back of his neck with an awkward grin, he tries to brush off the beatdown as a clumsy reflex. The tavern falls dead silent as Guildmaster Belza strides in, her sharp elven glare demanding an immediate explanation. Claire leaps forward in his defense, explaining that the brute harassed her and Elthid Adstrom merely protected her. Shouts of support roar across the hall as every adventurer agrees the loudmouth had this beating coming for weeks. Belza nods in calm approval, letting Elthid Adstrom exhale a massive sigh of relief that his guild card is safe. With a reassuring pat on his shoulder, she promises to overlook the brawl as guards haul the unconscious bully away. As the troublemaker is dragged out the door, Claire breathes easily at last and shares a grateful smile with Elthid Adstrom. Pulling off her hat to adjust her fiery hair, she admits her disguise failed and apologizes for all the trouble. Her fists clench with fierce resolve as she promises to aid Elthid Adstrom on any quest he ever undertakes. Elthid Adstrom simply shrugs and pockets his reward, noting he could not let such arrogance go unchecked. Shifting focus to his true goal, he asks if she knows about the exclusive armory that strictly requires an invitation. Memories of an old veteran's advice surface, pointing him toward the guild as the best place to uncover hidden smiths. Claire explains the forge belongs to a dwarven smith who refuses to speak with anyone lacking rare materials. Tracking down elite crafting materials becomes his top priority. Soon enough, he weaves through the bustling crowd straight to the guild's massive quest board. A high-paying bounty catches his eye, detailing the horns and talons of ferocious wyverns. One touch of those apex predator trophies will easily earn the dwarven smith's respect. The cheerful receptionist Arnett greets him with a smile, but her jaw drops when he selects a deadly A-rank mission. The receptionist quickly nudged him toward a much safer C-rank gathering quest with decent pay. Guild regulations were strict. Even with provisional status, lethal elite missions remained off-limits to novices. With a cheerful smile, the staff clerk stamped his request and waved goodbye. Gathering medicinal herbs sounded effortless, since master potion crafting made identifying flora second nature to Elthid Adstrom. Deep in the neighboring forest, shrill cries of flying beasts echoed across the sky as he longed for a true hunt. Kneeling beside mossy roots, he methodically harvested fresh stems in the quiet grove. Long hours spent poring over botanical manuals in his father's archive let him recognize every single plant. A sharp shriek ripped through the treetops, snapping him to attention. Even as his wooden basket filled to the brim with leaves, the ceaseless screeching overhead refused to stop. The harvest was complete, yet soaring predator silhouettes in the distance kept drawing his eyes. Peering past a massive trunk, sheer curiosity rewarded him with the sight of razor-sharp talons. Determined to scout them from the shadows, he triggered his short-range teleportation. Both monsters cocked their heads in bewilderment at the magical displacement. Elthid Adstrom materialized in uncharted thickets, deliberate in steering clear of his family's patrol routes. Cold sweat broke across his brow the second their predatory gazes locked onto him. Shrieking with feral fury, the winged beasts plunged straight down like falling boulders. Raising both palms, he released violent mana squalls that tore the airborne terrors apart. "Wind!" he barked, driving the final cyclone straight through his target. Recognizing the slain monsters as wyverns, he harvested their valuable parts despite having no hunting license. Venturing deeper through the brambles, the distant rumble of a cascading waterfall reached him. Heavy footfalls and guttural snarls resonated close by. Dry branches snapped right beside the clearing. Pushing the branches aside, he froze in place. A majestic crimson dragon rested by the roaring falls. His chest thudded violently under a wave of paralyzing dread. An actual legendary dragon, resting right here in the wild. The giant reptile angled its horned head downward, locking gaze with the intruder. Most monsters attack on sight, but this titan displayed no hostility whatsoever. Instead of lashing out, the colossal beast dipped its snout into the river to drink. "Human, do you truly feel no fear before me?" A deep, rumbling voice echoed in his mind. Warm breath washed over Elthid Adstrom, leaving him speechless with shock. Crimson blood flowed freely from a jagged wound torn across the dragon's flank. Vaughn wondered aloud why this child had not fled in terror like ordinary mortals. Elthid Adstrom stammered back, asking if the beast could truly speak, receiving a calm, "I can." The ancient predator praised his composure, unaware that the boy's knees were quivering beneath him. Placing his trust in the youngster, Vaughn asked for a small favor, catching Elthid Adstrom completely off guard. A pitiful whimper rumbled from the dragon's throat as he groaned about a stomachache and complete exhaustion. Elthid Adstrom offered a wry smile, realizing the colossal beast failed to understand he was bleeding out from a real wound. Pressing a gentle hand against the rough hide, he channeled a soft wave of healing radiance beneath his fingers. Rising to full height, the enormous lizard thrashed his tail with joy and roared his thanks, nearly knocking his savior flat. Agonizing torment had kept the dragon paralyzed for ages, so the young mage grinned sheepishly, thrilled his spell worked. Staring at the monster's carefree snout, he marveled at how anyone could ignore such a catastrophic injury. Even more baffling was that the behemoth could not remember how many days or months his agony had dragged on. Every movement before the cure had torn the gash wider, renewing the agony tenfold. Lowering his massive horns, the dragon swore a lavish reward, urging Elthid Adstrom to name any prize he desired. Refusing to act greedy, he asked only for a single shed scale resting near the monster's claws. Such modesty outright offended the proud beast, who stood ready to fulfill far grander demands. He waved his hands in polite refusal, catching sight of a gleaming shimmer beneath the beast's talon. With absolute gravity, the giant reptile declared that conquering or gifting a couple of kingdoms was child's play for him. That absurd level of generosity made his jaw drop as a chill of nervous sweat washed down his spine. Elthid Adstrom frantically yelled that he had zero use for kingdoms, begging the dragon never to consider such madness. Amused by the boy's humility, the dragon offered a pristine scale instead of dirt-caked scrap, playfully licking him first. Dripping with dragon saliva, he blinked back in utter shock. The titan unfurled his colossal claw and passed down the radiant prize. Reaching out carefully, Elthid Adstrom cradled the miraculous token in both hands. Sunlight caught the plate, refracting boasting brilliance unmatched by the world's rarest diamond. When he confessed he had no use for an empire, the drake merely snorted, noting a single scale could never buy one anyway. Before he could reply, a sweeping tail scooped him up and launched him into the air. Landing square on the monster's back, he locked his fingers around the jagged ridge for dear life. A guttural roar warned him to hold tight, prompting the boy to instantly cast body reinforcement. An explosive surge of acceleration nearly knocked the breath straight from his chest. Stray branches whipped against his face as the impenetrable hide beneath him held firm as stone. Rocketing straight up, the predator tore through the dense forest canopy. Massive wingbeats unleashed a gale that flattened the woodland clearing far below. Opening his eyes against the howling slipstream, Elthid Adstram froze in total awe. Spread beneath them lay an endless sea of green, a glittering river, and the white towers of Adlard. Their ascent was so fierce that the shadowed woods quickly faded into tiny patches beneath the fortress walls. Towering spires of the royal capital loomed ahead, breathtaking in their sheer, staggering scale. Vaughn narrowed his amber eyes with fond nostalgia, recalling carrying a joyful rider long ago. Sensing that warmth, Elthid Adstram realized this legendary drake had shared the skies with a partner before. Spreading his arms wide against the rushing wind, he embraced the boundless sky, savoring the greatest gift of his life. After a formal introduction, Elthid learns that his winged savior is named Vaughn. Vaughn vows to fly to his savior's aid, no matter how far away he might be. Touched by such loyalty, Elthid offers a warm smile, sealing their unbreakable bond of trust. The towering stone walls of the capital rush up beneath them. Crowds freeze in the streets, craning their necks toward the sky in sheer awe. A casual suggestion from Vaughn to toss Elthid straight into the city square leaves the boy horrified. Billows of dust erupt across the plaza as the massive beast lands heavily on the cobblestones. Terrified pedestrians scatter in every direction to clear the way. A familiar voice rings out from the crowd, recognizing the peculiar pair from the guild. Belza and Arnett stand with their mouths agape amid the stunned murmurs of onlookers. As Vaughn beats his wings and soars off, Elthid stammers an apology and offers to show them his prize. Within moments, the entire group steps inside the Grand Adventurer Guild. Resting inside a chest, a gleaming black sword and a massive scale strike Belza completely dumbfounded. Belza flashes a knowing smirk over the prize, certain the master smith will appreciate such a treasure. Admitting her initial mistake, the guildmaster awards Elthid an S rank on the spot, leaving him completely stunned. A wide grin breaks across Elthid's face upon hearing an invitation to return next week. The memory of a cheerful, dark-haired smith flashes in Belza's mind, drenching her brow in cold sweat. Elthid springs up and plants his hands on the desk, asking if she means the legendary dwarven smith. With that long-awaited confirmation, he strides out the door, eager to meet the legendary craftsman. Deep into the night, Castle Adlard looms in majestic stillness beneath a star-filled sky. A crisp white envelope sealed with crimson wax catches the faint glow of the chamber. King Wald cautions his son in the throne room that royal decrees cannot be reversed, but the prince bows in agreement. With an amused smirk, the silver-haired nobleman accepts the letter and asks Prince Lucia if he is truly ready. Clutching his chest to steady his racing heart, Prince Lucia swears his devotion will endure for eternity. A radiant smile graces his face as he confesses that Elthid has captivated his thoughts from their first meeting. The aristocrat accepts the letter with a gentle nod, promising he understands completely. Golden light fills the hall alongside a solemn pledge never to obstruct their path again. A panicked shout shatters the morning calm across House Adstram. Zeland Adstram stares in disbelief at the marriage proposal, though Arnevi Adstram dismisses it as King Wald's prank. Moments earlier, Arnevi had rushed into the study, announcing the arrival of a royal message. The family patriarch took the envelope in grim silence, bracing for trouble. The contents froze him in place. The royal sender formally demanded marriage, an utter absurdity. Prince Lucia officially drafted the proposal, addressing it directly to young Elthid Adstram. Far away from the palace drama, the royal capital bustles with untroubled daily life. Elthid examines a brand new dagger, his eyes sparkling with pure excitement. Belza had guided him to this cozy back-alley capital forge a week earlier, knowing its master had no equal. The dwarven smith asked if the finished blade met his expectations, expectations, and Elthid Adstrom nodded with a wide grin. Polished steel flashed with brilliant light, its hilt settling into his grip with flawless balance. Smiling warmly, the master told him to treat the weapon well and return to his anvil, refusing a single coin. Flustered by such generosity, Elthid Adstrom insisted on finding some way to repay the priceless gift. The dwarven smith explained that he forged the edge from rare mithril and set the boy's dragon scale into the hilt. Handing over the blade without charge, the smith admitted he had never shaped dragon scales pulsing with such raw mana. Before parting, he told the boy to thank Belza for the introduction and praised his polite demeanor. Elthid Adstrom bowed with genuine thanks, brushing off remarks about his frail build as pride swelled in his chest. Rustling brush broke the forest silence as a colossal spiked crocodile crawled into view. Out in the western forest of Adlard, predatory winged beasts circled above the canopy, gripping a real combat blade for the first time. Years of brutal training took over on pure instinct. Eager to test his new gift in live combat, he surged with body reinforcement magic. The beast lunged forward, met by Elthid Adstrom executing a swift feint to bypass its armored hide. A single sidestep slipped past the snapping jaws, putting him instantly behind the creature. Without meeting the slightest resistance, the edge sliced clean through thick scales. Shock rooted him in place after watching the monster shear apart with barely any effort. Exhilaration set his pulse hammering against his ribs. Although eager to hunt more beasts, duty demanded a prompt return to the city. Outside the guild house, a question greeted him about whether he noticed anything unusual in the western forest. Belza simply shrugged, noting that an abundance of prey only worked in their favor. Elthid Adstrom could only stare back at her in disbelief. Scratching his head sheepishly, he admitted he had been too focused on testing his sword to pay attention. She revealed that beasts surrounding the capital had turned unusually aggressive, leaving royal scouts without answers. Tensing up, Elthid Adstrom asked if this surge was truly unprecedented, earning a grim nod from her. Minor fluctuations happened all the time, she mused, but current monster activity shattered every baseline. Belza urged every hunter to report the slightest irregularity without delay. Walking through the capital streets, Elthid Adstrom recalled his previous excursion into the deep woods. Even the great crimson dragon Vaughn had grumbled about hordes of intruders encroaching on his domain. Pondering if the beasts were fleeing the capital toward his forest haven, he crashed straight into a passerby. An elegantly dressed nobleman towered before him, beside a companion who gasped upon recognizing Elthid Adstrom. Hearing her outcry drained the color from his face as cold dread settled in. Inside the grand parlor, an antique clock ticked off the agonizing seconds. A grim confrontation loomed ahead within the estate walls. Heavy, suffocating pressure flooded the room as Zeland Adstrom folded his arms in silent judgment. Zeland Adstrom calmly revealed that he saw right through the growth magic disguise, demanding a full explanation for those grown-up strolls through the capital. A quiet murmur of his name from his father made the boy hold his breath in sheer panic. Hearing about an abnormally powerful white-haired rookie instantly skyrocketing to S rank, Elthid Adstrom jumped in terror. Shifting his gaze aside, the boy tried to play dumb beneath his father's crushing stare. Intriguing rumors had been spreading across the capital lately. Zeland Adstrom pointed out with a cold grin. Clapping both hands over his mouth, Elthid Adstrom realized his secret identity was completely blown. A dangerous spark flared in his father's sharp eyes. Whispers described this mysterious adventurer as an elegant prodigy wrapped in a lavish dark blue cloak. Leaning in with a sweet smile, Zeland Adstrom asked if that description rang a bell and whether he was ready for punishment. For a solid hour, the father scolded him over reckless stunts as his siblings listened fearfully through the cracked door. Outside the room, Lufend Adstrom and Sirinze Adstrom exchanged terrified glances. Tears streamed down as a thoroughly humiliated Elthid Adstrom nodded to every reproach under sympathetic gazes. The 2-hour lecture concluded with a strict ban forbidding Elthid Adstrom from ever leaving the estate alone. Everyone gathered around the dining table, raising their voices in a shared call to begin the meal. Having craved roasted horror-on bird all day, Elthid Adstrom could now barely hold back his tears of despair. His plate held only plain buns and clear soup, stripped of his favorite roast as discipline. Out of nowhere, a steaming plate piled high with golden roasted horror-on bird slid in front of of him. After such a harsh reprimand, this warm act of kindness touched his soul to the core. Lufend Adstrom and Sirinze Adstrom secretly shared their meat, whispering not to let father notice. Slipping a tender bite into his mouth, he nearly purred in pure culinary bliss. All three children happily feasted together, trading bright, conspiratorial grins. At the head of the table, Zeland Adstrom silently sliced through his steak. Watching them from the corner of his eye, the Lord let out a quiet chuckle. Dinner came to an end, and the children stood up with a chorus of grateful thanks. A sudden call from his father stopped Elthid Adstrom in his tracks, making him flinch. Lufend Adstrom offered an encouraging grin in response to his father's awkward glance. Bracing for another scolding, Elthid Adstrom was surprised when his father admitted the topic was completely different. A soft rustle among the heavy bookshelves made the young master turn around in confusion. Zeland Adstrom led him into the private study for a serious talk, leaving his son wondering what caused such hesitation. Staring in disbelief at the marriage proposal from Prince Lucia, he heard his father sigh that he wished it were a joke too. Rubbing his forehead, the Duke confessed that his trip to the capital was also to confront King Wald about his true intentions. He recalled King Wald lounging cross-legged on the throne, wearing an enigmatic grin before delivering his answer. Gripping the parchment with trembling hands, Elthid Adstrom screamed at the top of his lungs in utter shock. It turned out King Wald had cheerfully declared that Prince Lucia was completely serious, freezing the boy solid. Panic spun before Elthid Adstrom's eyes at the thought of becoming half of the kingdom's prettiest boy couple. With an apologetic bow, Zeland Adstrom asked his young son to accompany him to the royal palace to decline the offer in person. A bright smile greeted them at the palace threshold as the young host swung the entrance doors wide open. Heartfelt greetings followed as he thanked his distinguished guests for making the journey. Grand stone spires and magnificent halls towered high above the royal courtyard. Letting out a heavy sigh, Zeland Adstrom stepped forward to address his sovereign. King Wald welcomed his brother with open arms, remarking on how long it had been since their last encounter. The inner doors flew open, and an ecstatic Prince Lucia yanked the guests inside before Elthid Adstrom could utter a word. Sparkling with adoration, Prince Lucia pressed for their answer on the engagement, leaving Zeland Adstrom in a cold sweat. Across the grand hall, an assembled crowd of royal servants erupted into thunderous applause. Panic gripped Elthid Adstrom, knowing that rejecting the proposal in this room was practically impossible. Leaning in close, he frantically whispered to Zeland Adstrom that this celebration felt like an actual wedding banquet. The groom's older brother offered a sly wink and advised cornering the bride, provoking a furious growl from Zeland Adstrom. Raising his goblet with a radiant grin, the elder prince proclaimed a warm toast to their honored guests. One glance at a heart-shaped steak was enough to ruin what little appetite Elthid Adstrom had left. Beaming with pride, Prince Lucia announced that the royal head chef had crafted this magnificent feast solely for him. The tender pastries melted on his tongue, making it painful for Elthid Adstrom to resist the royal banquet. Chuckling heartily, the royal chef urged him to eat his fill, hailing him as the kingdom's future princess. That single title of princess froze Elthid Adstrom in petrified disbelief. A horrifying realization dawned on him. The entire royal family believed he was a girl and seriously intended to marry him. Arms outstretched, Elthid Adstrom slammed the heavy doors shut right in front of the startled guests. Drawing a deep breath with closed eyes, he gathered the courage for a crucial confession. With a sharp call across the quieted hall, he demanded everyone's undivided attention. Clutching King Wald's lavish doublet, Elthid Adstrom frantically blurted out that a massive misunderstanding had occurred. A formal bow preceded his desperate shout of the honest truth. He was a boy. Crushed by the revelation, Prince Lucia turned away in silence, trudging into the shadows under a gloomy cloud. The stunned prince froze in place, struggling to process what had just been revealed. His jaw hung slack in complete disbelief, utterly stripped of words. "You knew all along?" Elthid Adstrom gasped in sheer shock. King Wald offered a calm chuckle, confirming that his gender had never been a secret. Grinning cheerfully, King Wald insisted that true love could take any shape, even between two men. When the monarch casually joked about future heirs, Elthid Adstrom flushed crimson with embarrassment. Zeland Adstrom pinched the bridge of his nose, barely suppressing his rage at his crowned brother's nonsense. silence. Sternly, Zeland Adstrom instructed his son to disregard the foolish ruler and go comfort Prince Lucia. King Wald defended himself by arguing that childhood betrothals were standard practice among high nobility. Unyielding, Zeland Adstrom stood his ground, retorting that his son was only 5 years old and had signed nothing. A sly smirk crosses King Wald's face as he schemes to use Elthid Adstrom's divine status in court politics, infuriating Zeland Adstrom. Zeland Adstrom silently brands his royal brother an absolute fool. Under that crushing glare, King Wald immediately shrinks back. Flashing a bright grin, the monarch tries to laugh the tension away. With an awkward cough, King Wald slinks away, muttering excuses under his breath. Out in the royal garden, Prince Lucia stares blankly into the distance. Elthid Adstrom quietly approaches, leaving an awkward silence hanging between them. Turning him down hurts, yet Elthid Adstrom has no intention of joining this unhinged royal family. Lowering his eyes, Prince Lucia admits he acted rashly without considering his cousin's feelings. A deep, formal bow follows as Prince Lucia offers a heartfelt apology, catching Elthid Adstrom off guard. Flustered, Elthid Adstrom urges Prince Lucia to raise his head, earning a grateful smile in return. Though Prince Lucia still admires his charm, he has finally sorted out his true feelings. Standing before Elthid Adstrom is a young prince already carrying genuine royal dignity. Extending an open hand with a warm smile, Prince Lucia asks to stay on good terms. From this day on, their bond will be purely as devoted friends and cousins. True strength of character shines through, befitting the kingdom's future ruler. The lost, bewildered child is gone. Prince Lucia now stands tall with quiet pride. Without a second thought, Elthid Adstrom accepts the offer. Their hands lock together in a firm, resolute handshake. Prince Lucia offers his heartfelt thanks, and both boys break into bright grins. Shared laughter echoes across the sunlit royal courtyard. An unexpected slip of the tongue catches Prince Lucia off guard, drawing a startled gasp. Elthid Adstrom lets out a ringing chuckle at the boy's awkward stumble. Brightly grinning, Prince Lucia doubles down and teases that the best part is yet to come. Lounging in the courtyard, Elthid Adstrom roars with laughter over how his father fell for a prank as Prince Lucia tries to defend him. A hearty slap hits the stone table as Elthid Adstrom lets his childlike excitement spill over. Pure bliss lights up his face, soaking in the carefree moment. A crisp voice cuts through their chat as a maid calls out to Prince Lucia. The palace maid politely announces that his royal tutor has arrived, ending their playtime. Disappointment silences Elthid Adstrom, longing to spend just a few more minutes with Prince Lucia. Unable to hold back, he calls out before his new friend can walk away. Prince Lucia turns with a warm smile, admitting his time with Elthid Adstrom flew by like an instant. Warmth fills his expression, adding that he will always welcome his first true companion. Bouncing on his heels, Elthid Adstrom asks whether he can come back to play again, offering a parting wave. Prince Lucia promises to meet up during the next grand castle vacation. An awkward scratch of the cheek followed, remembering that entering the Royal Academy meant rarely staying home. Beside the garden gazebo, Elthid Adstrom stood alone, watching fallen leaves drift across the grass. Thoughts of the Royal Academy refused to leave his mind. It stung that right after making a real friend, they would barely see each other again. The next morning found the boy rolling across his bed, groaning in pure misery. Arnevi Adstrom cancelled combat drills. The guild was off limits, and his older siblings were buried in textbooks. Staring at the ceiling, Elthid Adstrom daydreamed about how thrilling it would be to study magic in this world. Complete boredom was driving him up the wall. The door slammed open as Lufend Adstrom burst inside in tears, screaming that he refused to take that cursed entrance exam. Stepping closer, Elthid Adstrom found his older brother trembling in despair, whining about how much he hated equations. A quiet hand settled on his brother's shoulder, and a smiling tutor materialized right behind him, towering behind the panicked Lufend Adstrom. The tutor flashed an unnervingly wide grin, promising their lessons would be delightful. The bespectacled scholar was Lunar Felmond, the private instructor tutoring Elthid Adstrom's older brother and sister. Catching sight of Elthid Adstrom, Lunar Felmond stepped back and offered a polite apology for the commotion. Despite his refined looks, nothing in the world held the scholar's interest except research and dusty tomes. Lufend Adstrom whimpered that he could not take any more, yet the teacher calmly reminded him that exam year had arrived. Offering a warm smile, Elthid Adstram suggested they all study together to give his older brother some motivation. A quick request to join the lessons took Lunar Fellman by surprise, but the tutor gladly accepted. Manic excitement flared across Lunar Fellman's face at the prospect of teaching such a prodigy, unnerving the child. Deeply moved, Lufend Adstram pulled Elthid Adstram into a tearful hug, swearing to conquer the tests for his sake. Lunar Fellman paced across the study muttering curriculum plans, convinced this brilliant student would grasp every concept instantly. That year marked 10 for the elder brother, whereas 6-year-old Prince Lucia received early preparation rites as royalty. Throughout the kingdom, the gates of the Royal Academy opened only to children who had reached age 10. Crowding around the teacher, the kids proudly boasted that little Elthid Adstram already read books and calculated like a genius. An eyebrow arched in skepticism upon hearing about the toddler's supposed mathematical brilliance. Zirinze Adstram pulled Elthid Adstram into a joyful embrace, thrilled they would learn side by side. Recalling how fast he mastered the language after his past memories returned, Elthid Adstram wondered if modern knowledge would help here. Handing out the worksheets, Lunar Fellman invited Elthid Adstram to solve as many problems as he could manage. The boy looked over the parchment in disbelief. Fractions and long division felt like outright cruelty for an introductory lesson. With a faint smirk, the instructor asked how the challenge was going. Setting his nerves aside, Elthid Adstram set his quill moving. Fundamental mathematics never changed, even across worlds. Wide-eyed shock gripped the instructor, unable to believe the boy had finished so quickly. Having intended only a simple arithmetic check, the tutor stood baffled by such astonishing talent. Across the page lay flawless answers, completed without a single mistake. Once the perfect score was announced, little Elthid Adstram's eyes sparkled with triumph. Lunar Fellman steps closer, calling out to Elthid Adstram with grave seriousness. Cheering classmates crowd around the desk, clamoring to see the test paper and celebrating the boy's flawless score. Handing over a fresh parchment, Lunar Fellman asks him to tackle an advanced problem right away. Under the tutor's intense gaze, Elthid Adstram scratches away with his quill, wondering if ordinary 5-year-olds are truly expected to know this. Another perfect score echoes across the room, leaving the young genius to blink in confusion. A wave of relief washes over the study as broad grins break out across every face. Dipping a pen into ink, Lunar Fellman neatly inscribes the name of Elthid Adstram onto the formal registry. Lufend Adstram and Zirinze Adstram tackle their little brother in a fierce hug, marveling at his brilliant mind. A bombshell proposal to take the entrance exam for the Royal Academy stops Elthid Adstram dead in his tracks. Lunar Fellman assures him that standard age restrictions will crumble before such undeniable mastery. Though Elthid Adstram protests that he is only 5 years old, a glowing personal recommendation will clear every barrier. Bursting into the study, Zirinze Adstram demands to take the test alongside her brothers, earning Lunar Fellman's full endorsement. Excitement sparks as the siblings picture campus life together with Prince Lucia at their side. Visions of grand magic lectures, bustling campus festivals, and legendary archmages fill their minds. The Royal Academy promises endless discoveries that will make their noble parents beam with pride. Zelund Adstram grants his formal blessing, sealing their path toward the capital. Lunar Fellman rushes off toward the Lord's chambers to secure the official seal of Zelund Adstram. Intense daily study sessions begin, burying the children under towering stacks of grimoires. One-on-one tutoring pushes Elthid Adstram deeper into high-tier magical theory. Even Lufend Adstram, notorious for despising books, grinds through his scripts with fierce determination. Towering piles of advanced manuscripts loom over Elthid Adstram as the curriculum grows brutally demanding. Rigorous study days blur together in an endless cycle of drills and theory. Following a grueling lesson, Elthid Adstram confronts the tutor about the escalating difficulty. Lunar Fellman turns around with a sly grin, asking if his prize pupil has figured it out yet. Hesitation creeps in as Elthid Adstram admits that the recent material feels overwhelmingly complex. Quickening his pace, the boy catches up to Lunar Fellman in the hallway. In sheer awe, Lunar Fellman confesses that they blew past basic schooling and are currently studying senior academy treatises. Driven by scholarly curiosity, the instructor kept raising the bar whenever the child child solved every puzzle with ease. A warm smile softens Lunar Fellman's face as he admits his obsession, declaring his student completely prepared. Knowing the actual entrance trial will be child's play compared to this madness brings immense relief. Elthid Adstrom lets out a heavy breath, glad that his supposed struggles were just university-level hurdles. When the instructor eagerly proposes pushing even further, the exhausted prodigy frantically waves his hands to refuse. Weeks fly past in a blur until the fateful day of exam results finally arrives. The written testing at the academy went off without a single hitch. The study door swings open as Lunar Fellman bursts inside, clutching a stack of sealed royal letters. A broad grin broke across his face as he announced that every single one of them had been accepted into the Royal Academy. Cheers of pure joy erupted as the children threw their arms around one another in a tight embrace. Watching the celebration with fond smiles, the adults knew a brand new chapter was unlocking for the young trio. Miles away, a mysterious woman peered through a crystal ball at the file of a 5-year-old boy with a perfect test score. Silver hair and violet eyes instantly gave away the identity of the rumored S-rank adventurer. The name House Adstrom echoed in her mind, stirring distant memories from long ago. A knowing smirk crossed the face of the witch, eager to meet the pint-sized prodigy in person. Entrance day at the Royal Academy finally arrived, finding Elthid Adstrom turning before the mirror in his brand new uniform. To avoid unwanted stares directed at a 5-year-old, his family permitted him to cast growth magic and age his body to 10. A quiet click echoed through the room as the door swung open. In bounced Lufend Adstrom and Serinze Adstrom, already dressed in spotless academy uniforms. Serinze Adstrom squealed over his cute outfit, though Elthid Adstrom secretly hoped to strike a fierce pose. Noticing the crooked collar, Lufend Adstrom stepped forward to fix the unruly necktie. Flushing with embarrassment, Elthid Adstrom admitted that tying a necktie was completely beyond him. Back in his past life as Izaki Rui, he tied them daily, but here he had to play the helpless child. Stepping in with practiced grace, Radia perfected his collar to the sound of hearty laughter. Raising his glass at the feast, Zelland Adstrom addressed the 3 aspiring students with deep solemnity. A stern warning followed as Zelland Adstrom ordered them not to stir up trouble on their first day. An innocent smile was Elthid Adstrom's only reply, drawing heavy sighs at his blatant promise of peace. Dorm life was mandatory at the Royal Academy, and despite having teleportation magic, the rules came first. Weighing his past wild antics, Elthid Adstrom chose to obey the restrictions without a fuss. Warm farewells echoed across the estate as the family wished the young scholars boundless success. With a single stride into the glowing portal, the gateway to the Royal Academy swung wide open. Emerging on the other side, Serinze Adstrom proudly declared that Elthid Adstrom would top the class. Their jaws dropped in unison as the breathtaking view rendered them completely speechless. Towering white stone spires and massive clock towers turned the Royal Academy into an architectural fairy tale. Having taken their exams off-site, seeing the colossal campus in person left them utterly awestruck. Passing through the bustling crowd, Lufend Adstrom urged them onward to the opening ceremony. Instead of a standard auditorium, a colossal coliseum loomed before the incoming freshmen. Gathering in a gladiator arena felt utterly surreal, yet they promptly took their seats in the stands. "Welcome, freshmen," a booming voice echoed across the stadium, startling the entire crowd. Standing dead center in the arena, a poised girl formally announced the start of the ceremony. From high in the stands, she was a mere speck against the vast sea of students. Her voice carried effortlessly, powered not by technology, but by an enchanted voice amplifier. Dense plumes of mystical smoke rolled across the arena floor, swallowing the stage whole. Massive pillars of flame roar to life across the stage, leaving the stunned crowd wondering if this entrance ceremony is actually a rock concert. Gasps of shock ripple through the packed hall as a shadowy figure materializes through the parting smoke. Headmistress Videria steps into the light with a microphone, welcoming the new students to the Royal Academy. With a faint smirk, she concludes her welcome and hands the microphone off to her assistant. Watching her leave, Elthid senses a chilling aura of immense magical pressure radiating from the headmistress. The assistant takes over to announce the class placement exam, ordering every freshman toward the main hall. A sharp glance from the departing headmistress pierces straight toward him, though he brushes it off as pure coincidence. Yet Videria truly did narrow her gaze back over her shoulder, fixating directly on him. Thousands of excited freshmen surge forward toward the Grand Academy building. His companions chatter excitedly about the fiery show, but Elthid remains on edge, dreading that he drew unwanted attention. The tension only mounts as curious, heavy stares from surrounding nobles bore into his back. Unease quickly grips Lufend Adstram as he whispers his growing concern to the group. Anxious questions about everyone staring earn him a quick scoff from Sirenze Adstram. Hushed murmurs and sideways glances confirm the obvious. Their group has become the main attraction. Self-conscious about his bright blonde hair, Lufend frets over standing out, even as passers-by praise the striking shade. Even in an elite academy, overflowing with high nobility, the radiant siblings stand out like beacons. A timid female voice calls out from right behind their backs. Catching up to their pace, a dark-haired girl asks if they are all first-year students. Flustered, she explains that she happened to sit right next to them throughout the opening ceremony. She drops a bombshell on the group. They have been marching confidently in the completely wrong direction. Panic erupts over the threat of missing the exam, leaving Elthid regretting his trust in their navigation, as Lutena urges them on. A frantic sprint begins as the four of them dash full speed toward the main lecture hall. A stern proctor at the entrance greets them with a sharp scolding, but they manage to slip in just in time. The massive testing hall buzzes with the nervous chatter of hundreds of candidates. Instructions echo across the room as the chief examiner calls for groups of 3 to begin magic power measurement. Glancing around the packed room, Elthid wonders which of these aspiring mages will share his classroom. He marvels at how warm and helpful their unexpected savior turned out to be. Smiling warmly, Lutena confesses her wish that all of them end up in the exact same class. Bidding them good luck, Lutena dashes forward to line up for her assessment. 10 minutes pass before the proctor calls the next batch to the evaluation stage. Hearing her name called out, Lutena squeaks in fright and jumps in place. Right after her, the proctors announce the trio from House Adstram: Elthid, Sirenze, and Lufend. Spectators murmur in awe about their prodigal reputation, though Elthid only recalls Lufend constantly crying over homework. Caught off guard by the intense reaction, Elthid flinches at how loud the gossip has become. The entire hall murmurs in awe about their prestigious frontier bloodline, but Elthid remains completely unfazed. Guided toward crystal mana orbs, identical to the ones at the guild, the candidates received orders to place their palms flat. Memories of his last disastrous test flashed through Elthid Adstram, warning him not to shatter another device. Hovering his hand over the glass, he focused every ounce of concentration on holding back his overwhelming mana. Lufend Adstram and Sirenze Adstram cleared their trials effortlessly as steady light bathed their fingertips. The orb under Elthid Adstram blew apart into razor shards, leaving the proctor staring in speechless shock. A sheepish grin crossed his face as he swept up the glittering wreckage under the stunned gaze of the hall. Spotting crimson on his palm, Sirenze Adstram shrieked and dragged Elthid Adstram straight toward the clinic. Murmurs of disbelief rippled across the testing chamber over the display of unheard-of magical force. Lufend Adstram kicked the infirmary door open, carrying Elthid Adstram as Sirenze Adstram bolted inside. Protests that magic could mend the cut fell on deaf ears. His brother demanded an immediate examination. The excessive panic baffled him, especially since the tiny scrape had already sealed beneath his skin. Hearing the nurse prepare emergency trauma protocols, Elthid Adstram cried out that it was just a scratch. Tearful pleas from Lufend Adstram and Sirenze Adstram left him defenseless against their fretting. Unfurling a completely healed palm, Elthid Adstram finally eased the terror gripping his siblings. Before they could step outside, a stern examiner marched into the ward and called for House Adstram. Checking that Elthid Adstram was unharmed, she issued a harsh warning against deserting the exam grounds. A fierce reprimand from the nurse for disrupting the clinic forced the proctor to mutter an apology. Asking about their scores, Elthid Adstram learned that every required mana measurement was safely recorded. Her voice dropped to a grim tone as she declared that Headmistress Videria demanded their presence at once. Heavy dread sank into Elthid Adstram, knowing a direct summon from the top top never brought good news. Recollections of Videria and her predatory smirk sent cold sweat trickling down his neck. Probing for details about this unexpected meeting earned him only a cold, dismissive silence. Wild capital rumors flooded Elthid Adstrom with anxiety that Videria had branded him a violent delinquent. Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom spiraled in guilt, convinced their mistakes had ruined House Adstrom. Instructed to go to the dorms right after, Seirinze Adstrom resolved to bow and apologize to Videria. Navigating unmapped teleportation gates without clear directions presented far too great a hazard. Facing dizzying flights of spiraling stairs, Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom wished they had wings. A sharp clap against his palm signaled that Elthid Adstrom had struck upon a solution. Announcing a brilliant shortcut, he left his siblings trading bewildered glances. The towering spire holding Videria's office scraped the clouds, turning the ascent into a marathon. Recalling the sensation of riding Vaughn across the skies, Elthid Adstrom whispered a levitation chant. Leather boots lifted clean off the stone pavement. Cheerful laughter broke out as Elthid Adstrom drifted smoothly into the air before their stunned eyes. Dazzled by the spectacle, Seirinze Adstrom begged him to cast the miraculous spell over them as well. The instant enchantment enveloped them. Rogue updrafts sent the trio flipping wildly through the sky, dangling upside down in midair. Both of them shrieked as they flailed to regain their balance. Elthid Adstrom gripped her hand tight, pulling them both upward into a steep, soaring climb. A flock of doves scattered around them as they rocketed over the towering spires of the Royal Academy. Cutting through the open sky with his companions, he felt a lifelong dream finally come alive. Up in a high tower window, a solitary silhouette offered them a friendly wave. Shock rippled through the trio upon recognizing the headmistress herself, Videria. Pure freedom rushed through his veins, bringing another childhood fantasy to life. Tumbling straight through the open office window one by one, they drew a startled gasp from their host. Videria calmly clicked the window shut against the flurry of circling birds outside. The steam from freshly poured tea and her gentle demeanor gradually eased the young mage's panic. Shuffling awkwardly by the sill, the students stammered apologies for their wild entrance. Once everyone sat down, Videria cut straight to the real purpose of her summons. Looking right across the table, she dropped a bombshell. She wanted them to graduate immediately. That single sentence struck all three of them into stunned silence. Terrified of instant expulsion over the incident with Elthid Adstrom, they sputtered frantic apologies. Elthid Adstrom bowed low, pleading with her to punish only him and spare Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom. Taking a calm sip of tea, Videria assured them that punishment was never on the table. Her light-hearted praise for their tight sibling bond carried the tone of a staged theatrical quip. Turning serious, she revealed their exam scores shattered all records, with Elthid Adstrom destroying the mana gauge entirely. "I am offering all three of you commissions in the Royal Division," Videria announced with a gentle smile. Their magical prowess already matched elite veterans, and no lethal frontline missions would ever be forced onto children. Lufend Adstrom blurted out an immediate refusal before Seirinze Adstrom could even ask about the age limit. Videria softly pressed back, arguing that the magic core was where the extraordinary gift of Elthid Adstrom belonged. Tearful, Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom latched onto Elthid Adstrom, crying that they wanted regular school life and festivals together. An awkward nod from Elthid Adstrom confirmed every word of their plea. To their immense relief, Videria relented without another word of protest. "Just let me know if you ever change your minds," she requested gently. Standing up, Videria praised their resolve to pursue personal dreams over hollow aristocratic duty. Near the doorway, she asked if they were the children of Zeland Adstrom and Arnevi Adstrom, smirking when they confirmed it. A playful grin broke across her face as she revealed his secret as a 5-year-old S-rank adventurer, nearly making Elthid Adstrom scream. Frantically waving his hands, he scrambled to invent an excuse before his baffled siblings. The way she carried herself reminded him chillingly of King Wald. Cornered and utterly exposed, he had no choice but to nod in surrender. Videria knew his siblings would hound him with endless questions if the full truth slipped out. Tapping a finger to her lips with a wink, she whispered that she adored a good secret. Conversation stretched on for nearly an hour inside the headmistress's office. Eyes sparkling with excitement, Lufend and Seirinze pressed for tales of their parents adventuring alongside Videria and Belza. Cringing at old romance gossip about Zeland and Arnevi, Elthid Adstram buried his nose in the dormitory map instead. Still, Seirinze and Videria kept whispering, piecing together rumors of the headmistress's long-lost crush on his father. Ahead loomed the grand special dormitory, where Vice President Zellard stepped out to bark a self-important greeting, drunk on his own title. The upperclassmen forced the bewildered freshmen to chant Senior Zellard in unison. Popping up from nowhere, he kept striking dramatic poses before the flabbergasted trio. A fierce grip clamped onto Zellard's head for inventing his tour, making Elthid fear for the senior's skull, dragging him by his hair. Philunia Wells introduced herself as dorm head and student council president. Watching her haul the senior away, the rookies instantly recognized her from the entrance ceremony speech, tightening her grip on his scalp. Philunia scolded Zellard for confusing the new students with his nonsense. She led them straight to their private quarters, revealing lavish suites reserved exclusively for Class 1S. Elthid offered polite thanks, prompting Philunia to smack Zellard again when he tried claiming all the credit. Sprawling bathhouses and a banquet-sized dining hall rivaled even the grandeur of House Adstram. Urging the freshmen to eat and rest, Philunia dragged Zellard away beneath the rising full moon. Exchanging cheerful goodnights, Lufend and Seirinze parted ways with Elthid for their separate rooms. Peaceful silence settled across the halls, marking their first night under the academy roof. Sleep came quickly, filled with thoughts of their eccentric headmistress, boisterous seniors, and classes ahead. Dawn shattered with a crash as Lufend and Seirinze kicked Elthid's door open, screaming that they overslept. Heavy academy bells clanged across the campus, signaling the final call for class. Channeling body reinforcement, Elthid bolted down the stone corridors at blinding speed beside the others. Gasping for air, the trio begged to know if they made it, only to face an instructor's icy glare. Homeroom mentor Kiris Enost greeted the House Adstram students with a sweet smile that masked murderous eyes. Classroom doors slid open without a sound, revealing the inner sanctum. Kiris Enost ordered them inside without preamble, noting the rest of the class sat fully assembled. Stepping across the threshold, Elthid scanned the lavish lecture hall of Class 1S. A lone boy near the window caught his eye, staring out toward the courtyard in calm silence. Nearby, a familiar face beamed back at him. Lieutenant had claimed a seat in the elite roster. A swift head count confirmed exactly 10 prodigies gathered in the room. Tense silence hung in the air as every student sized up their peers' hidden mana pools. Mumbling hasty apologies, Lufend and Seirinze scraped their chairs back and took their seats. Passing the window seat, Elthid froze in shock. Despite altered hair, that boy was Prince Lucia, introducing herself in 2 sharp sentences. Kiris Enost announced an immediate mock combat trial. Instead of a lecture, a massive stone combat arena awaited the class for team magic duels. Squared off against his new classmates, as Kiris Enost gave the signal, Elthid cursed the school's insane curriculum. To test the teamwork of Class 1S, the instructor abruptly calls an immediate mock battle. Baffled students trade uneasy glances before they can even introduce themselves. After proposing random teams, the instructor singles out the talents of House Adstram. Ordered to opposite sides, they are strictly warned to hold back their monstrous abilities. A twin-tailed girl and one of the brothers instantly shout to be on Elthid Adstram's team. Knowing their antics will drag him down, Elthid Adstram darts across to the far end of the ring. A dark-haired youth offers a gentle smile, revealing himself as Prince Lucia. Their dark-haired classmate notes that Lutena and 3 other students will fill out their squad. As confusion ripples over his identity, Prince Lucia gives a warm nod toward his rivals. The rules are simple. 10 minutes on the clock, ring-outs mean defeat, and the team with the most survivors wins. The mock battle officially begins. Exhaling deeply, Elthid Adstram braces for the opening clash. A vicious vortex tears straight at them, forcing the young prodigy into the air. Prince Lucia summons wind spirits, hurling a raging tornado across enemy lines. Levitation keeps him suspended overhead as his team locks down an impenetrable magic barrier. A fierce grin breaks across his face, ready to blow the arena wide open. Dropping to the ground, he unleashes swirling torrents of raw mana. His allies follow suit, combining fire and wind for a devastating counterattack. Thrusting both hands forward, forward. An opponent unleashes a catastrophic wave of hellfire. Black flames roar across the ring with blistering heat, scattering students in all directions. A massive torrent of water crashes down from above, stunning both sides. Elthid Adstrom shouts across the chaos to extinguish the raging inferno. In that split second, a daring strategy forms in his mind. Stepping past the drenched rivals, he reminds himself to exercise restraint and avoid casualties. With a sweep of his arm, he whips up a storm that rips across the arena floor. The concussive shockwave flings 2 opponents backward, knocking them out cold. Heavy backlash claims 3 of his own allies, scorched from their clash with House Adstrom. Glancing down at his hands, he wrestles to calm the residual energy surging through his veins. Knowing direct spells will be countered, Elthid Adstrom resolves to combine power with Lutena. Eager to prove herself after feeling useless, Lutena steps forward to help. Calling out his name, she sprints straight to his side, asked for her best element. She answers without hesitation: water. Their rivals waste no time as a red-haired girl begins summoning a wind spirit. A majestic winged entity takes form above the combat ring. Gale force shockwaves threaten to blow them away, but Elthid Adstrom deploys a protective barrier in the nick of time. Lutena screams in horror at the madness unfolding before her, unable to believe opponents could fight like this holding back. Elthid Adstrom calls for an immediate strike the moment the barrier drops, prompting Lutena to begin her water incantation. A massive tidal surge erupts from Lutena's hands, forcing their rivals to throw up their guard, matching her rhythm without missing a beat. Elthid Adstrom recites the incantation for his own spell. The faceless spirit snaps its wings forward to unleash a devastating counterattack. Deafening winds roar across the arena, tearing violently through the air. Shockwaves sweep through the grounds, kicking up a towering wall of dust and debris. Stone barriers crumble to dust as Prince Lucia freezes in total disbelief. He swallows hard, breathless in the heavy silence. Glancing through the haze, Elthid Adstrom realizes they went way too far. Behind the protective ward cower terrified classmates, barely shielded by the instructor in time. Furious over such lethal force, the instructor scolds him as Elthid Adstrom sheepishly admits he got carried away. Before the teacher can finish scolding them, the magical shield behind him shatters with a deafening crack. Heads drop in unison as the students stand overcome with guilt. Rubbing his temples, the instructor admits he miscalculated their raw power when ordering them to go all out. Questioned about the spectators, he grumbles that he sent them away before the clash began. Declaring the match a draw, he orders everyone back to the classroom. Students file off the battlefield in obedient silence. One boy looks away, his face turning bright red. Breathing a sigh of relief, Elthid Adstrom suggests with an awkward grin that they hurry along. Cheerful laughter breaks out behind them as classmates eagerly praise his monstrous spell. Prince Lucia offers a warm smile, admitting Elthid Adstrom never fails to shock him. Explaining his tactics, Prince Lucia notes his father taught him to seize the initiative, surprising Elthid Adstrom. A bright chuckle escapes Elthid Adstrom in response. Lufend Adstrom and Seirenze Adstrom rush over, demanding to know the identity of the mysterious stranger. Hearing them ask about meeting at the Royal Academy freezes the pair in disbelief. A mischievous grin spreads across Elthid Adstrom's face. The casual introduction of Prince Lucia leaves Lufend Adstrom and Seirenze Adstrom wide-eyed with astonishment. They pepper him with questions about growth magic, though he laughs it off and credits a special potion. Heading outside to meet Lutena, the group offers loud apologies for keeping her waiting. Lutena offers a soft smile, confessing she stayed behind because she wanted a chance to talk. Seirenze Adstrom happily hugs her friend, wrapping up a turbulent second day at the Royal Academy. That peaceful evening does not last. Heavy, ragged breaths and frantic footsteps echo through the darkness of the night. A lone figure flees desperately through the dense woods, running for dear life. Cold sweat dripped down his neck as he gasped for air in pure terror. Desperation drove his boots forward, tearing through the dense thickets. A monstrous griffin blocked his path, flanked by a pack of wolves and flying beasts, marking only the start of the nightmare. Curled beneath a tree, he covered his ears against ferocious roars that had no business echoing so close to the royal capital. Peace had officially shattered. Zeland Adstrom and Arnevi Adstrom fretted over Royal Academy academy life, yet Elthid Adstrom handled every challenge effortlessly. A full month slipped by since the semester began. Standard classes felt painfully dull compared to the brutal drills of Lunar Felmond. The routine shifted the moment magical pharmacy class was announced. For a soul once bound to a mundane world, brewing real potions felt like an absolute marvel. Smiling warmly at the room, the instructor introduced the day's assignment. Rows of glass vials and rare magical reagents lined every shelf across the laboratory. Today's task was brewing a basic fire potion, and she urged everyone to handle the materials with care. Lieutenant channeled her mana until her flask sparkled with vibrant sparks, drawing gasps of awe from her classmates. High praise followed instantly, with the instructor declaring that no one else her age could match such flawless control. Her smile vanished the second her gaze snapped toward the neighboring workbench. An ominous hum echoed across the room, pulling every pair of eyes in disbelief. Elthid Adstrom barely finished comparing the recipe to his past life before his vial erupted into a raging storm of blinding mana. Screaming in panic, the instructor snatched the volatile mixture from Elthid Adstrom and hurled it out the open window. A deafening blast shook the courtyard, forcing both the teacher and Elthid Adstrom to leap back from the sill. Bystanders in the corridor froze in total shock, paralyzed by the sheer concussive shockwave. Creeping back toward the ledge, the instructor watched shimmering magical embers drift through the smoke, guiltily looking away. Elthid Adstrom braced for severe punishment after causing such a mess. Chaos engulfed the classroom as terrified shrieks blended with thrilled murmurs over the potion's raw firepower. Instead of scolding him, she broke into a radiant grin and awarded top marks for sheer brewing brilliance. Eyes sparkling with excitement, she clutched her beaker, completely captivated by his absurd talent. The practical exam soon relocated to a colossal open-air arena, styled after an ancient coliseum. A wave of relief washed over Elthid Adstrom upon realizing the Royal Academy operated on wonderfully relaxed standards. Stepping up to the firing line, he struck target after target with pinpoint precision, earning instant praise. Behind his polite smile, he knew that holding back his true mana wrecked his natural aim. Fellow students stood slack-jawed, utterly demoralized by his effortless display of skill. The instructor called Elthid Adstrom over, beckoning him forward with an intrigued expression, demonstrating a stance. The master advised compressing his mana internally to rein in that wild output. Prince Lucia fired volley after volley dead center into the bullseye, leaving his classmates speechless. A blinding detonation right beside her made the young mage flinch in shock. Recognizing Prince Lucia's undeniable talent, she resolved to train even harder to keep pace. The instructor furiously scolded Lufend Adstrom and Sirinze Adstrom for blasting the targets to pieces against orders. Fortunately, morning drills finally wrapped up, giving the students a well-earned break. Zellard slammed his cards onto the table in triumph, having crushed the first years before they could read the board. Prince Lucia offered a calm smile, accepting the defeat as a valuable lesson from a senior. Unchecked, Zellard bragged about the power of an older mage, shameless before his younger peers. Philunia Wells seized the loudmouth by the head, chewing him out for going all out against first years. A tense murmur from across the table broke her concentration. Two classmates locked eyes in a fiery glare under the anxious gaze of Philunia Wells. Heated shouts erupted as the pair accused each other of cheating mid-game. One girl froze under the piercing stare of her rival, flushed with embarrassment. The other also went quiet as her anger faded. Lieutenant blushed softly, stepping in to confirm what had truly happened. Urging her friends to cool off, Lieutenant offered a warm smile and proposed resetting from the last turn. Fresh cards clicked onto the table as she encouraged her classmates to just enjoy the match. Elthid Adstrom admired her steady resolve. Lieutenant might look gentle, but her decisions never wavered. Afterward, Lieutenant confessed to a friend that surviving the wilds made her truly treasure this peaceful life. Academy life flowed with calm rhythm, rich in simple warmth and quiet days. Moments like this brought a faint smile to Elthid Adstrom, chiding himself for ever calling peace boring. The great bell tower echoed across the Royal Academy, announcing the start of another morning. Good-natured chuckles greeted Elthid Adstrom and his siblings as they slipped into class at the last second. Seconds earlier, the trio had dashed through the door out of breath, calling out their morning greetings. A heavy, unnatural unnatural vibration from the hallway made Elthid Adstrom freeze and glance over his shoulder. Old habits from his past life lingered, leaving Elthid Adstrom sleeping until the final possible minute. Noticing their instructor was missing, Lieutenant confirmed that such tardiness was unheard of for Kiris Inost. Deep in the shadowed hallway, an active magic circle pulsed beneath freshly etched countdown runes. Students in Class 1S joked among themselves that their strict teacher had simply overslept. Blaring alarm sirens shattered the calm with an ear-piercing wail. An urgent broadcast boomed through the speakers, ordering an immediate evacuation to Arena 1. Reaching the vast arena floor, the students spotted Kiris Inost waiting near the center. The instructor rushed toward them, offering a tense apology for missing the morning roll call. Her orders were firm: stay put beneath the reinforced protection of the arena barrier. Headmistress Videria stepped forward to announce a massive mana anomaly tearing through the capital. Word of a monstrous horde approaching sent a wave of panic crashing through the assembly. Videria quickly assured the students that the Royal Academy grounds remained secure for now. Kiris Inost orders the students to stay calm and let the faculty handle the defense. Dread tightens in Elthid Adstrom's chest for the guild and the defenseless citizens. The royal capital of Adlard is under siege. Class 1S students plead with their instructor to let them defend the city. He calls out to her with desperate urgency. Pain colors the students' voices as they try to mask the grim truth from onlookers. Elthid Adstrom casts his eyes down in quiet sorrow. Behind her witch hat, Kiris Inost senses something dangerous stirring within him. Pure chaos surges through the packed town square. Stepping into position, Elthid Adstrom prepares to teleport away, but Lufend Adstrom and Serenze Adstrom grab his arms. Neither sibling intends to let him go alone. "I need to reach the royal capital right now," he whispers. Desperate to protect them, he begs his siblings not to risk their lives on such a deadly battlefield. Clasping his hands with warm smiles, they swear to shield their little brother with their lives. Heavy footsteps ring out from the shadows of the alley. Prince Lucia emerges alongside Lieutenant, refusing to cower in safety as others bleed. Standing tall with fierce resolve, both demand to join the team. Stunned by their determination, Elthid Adstrom can only stare. A sharp reprimand cuts through the air as Kiris Inost steps between them. Turning to the group, Elthid Adstrom declares they are departing for the royal capital of Adlard immediately. Kiris Inost freezes, stunned by the sheer audacity of his plan. His bottomless power is undeniable, making him the capital's only true hope. Flashing a confident grin, Elthid Adstrom accepts her old offer to join the Magic Corps right now. Guilt tears at Kiris Inost for sending elite Royal Academy students straight into a slaughterhouse. Gripping his hands tight, she begs him to survive and come back alive. Understood, Elthid Adstrom answers with firm conviction. Fighting back tears, she asks the young warriors to lend their strength to the kingdom. A radiant teleportation gate opens, ready to cast the strike team into the fire. Mana flares in a brilliant burst of light. Lunar Fellman steps up to lead them through, and the strike team crosses the threshold. The horror waiting on the other side freezes the group in their tracks. Shattered ruins line the grand avenues as bloodthirsty beasts tear through fleeing civilians. Hell consumes every corner as rampaging beasts smash homes and survivors scramble through the smoke. A monstrous minotaur rears up directly behind Elthid Adstrom. Lunar Fellman raises a magic barrier just in time, blocking the crushing blow of its massive weapon. Elthid Adstrom reacts instantly, blasting a massive water cannon straight into the fray. "Get your heads in the game and defend the civilians," he commands his frozen classmates. A high-pressure blast slams dead on target, crashing the beast into the stone pavement. Snapping out of their stupor, the students regroup to clear every monster from the perimeter. Sharp water spears erupt from the cobblestones, impaling the leaping black wolves mid-air. Emboldened by his lead, the squad advances in formation, layering defensive spells. Just inches from snapping jaws, the red-haired girl throws up a barrier in the nick of time. Heavy dust drifts over the shattered district, revealing crushed stone and torn barricades. A blood-curdling howl echoes through the ruined alleys, signaling another wave. Enemy numbers keep multiplying by the second, promising a brutal war of attrition. Catching his breath, the battered instructor confirms the first wave is finally wiped out. Desperate screams cut through their debate before they can decide on treating the wounded. Out of breath, a combat medic rushes up, pelted with urgent questions by the hooded warrior. Lieutenant steps forward without hesitation, digging through her satchel for healing elixirs. Though the palace remains secure, wounded civilians overflow faster than healers can treat them. With an embarrassed smile, she reveals she brought a massive personal stockpile of remedies, recognizing her modest pouch as a rare spatial expansion bag. Elthid lets out a gasp of surprise. Clutching the bag to her chest, she flusters and admits she bought it just for her bruise. Dozens of glowing vials spill across the ground, prompting the medic to distribute them at once. Backing her up, Elthid reaches into his own spatial storage and dumps an even bigger batch. Watching Lieutenant head into danger, the hooded ally calms his worry upon noting her escort's combat skill. Standing beside Elthid, Adstrom guarantees they have the ultimate shield. Splitting into two groups, one vanguard holds the line, and Lieutenant leads the medical rescue. Placing a firm hand on Elthid's shoulder, the hooded S-rank adventurer asks him to protect the rest. A firm nod seals his promise, though Elthid realizes the headmistress was not the only one in on his secret. Wounded soldiers gaze at their mended limbs in utter disbelief as the high-grade brew closes every cut. Refusing to back down, two black wolves unleash a synchronized volley of fire and razor wind. Endless swarms continue to pour into the plaza, replacing fallen packs with fresh monsters. Overhead, a deafening shriek shakes the clouds as wyverns dive through the smoke. These beasts far outclass standard foes, yet nearby homes prevent Elthid from unleashing high-tier magic. As an exhausted ally collapses onto the stone, Elthid thrusts his hands forward and weaves a glowing spell circle. Furious shouts echo behind him over the aerial ambush, but he advances to silence the sky himself. Screeching furiously, a full flock of winged predators dives straight for the exposed crowd. Thrusting both hands toward the sky, he chants the invocation for an absolute barrier. Locking over the district, a colossal dome leaves the winged beasts clawing helplessly against solid mana. Slaying them directly overhead was out of the question, since their massive carcasses would crush the citizens below. Right through the roaring chaos, a familiar voice called out his name. A massive crimson silhouette broke through the clouds, descending toward them at high speed. Elthid Adstrom looked up in astonishment as a brilliant flash lit up the sky. The giant dragon Vaughn tore through the flock of monsters, drawing a gasp of shock from Elthid Adstrom. Overjoyed to see his friend, the boy pressed his face against the dragon's great snout. Vaughn explained that he had sensed trouble in the human city and rushed over to lend his aid. Asked to blast the airborne horde far away, the dragon promised to sweep them clear with a single tail strike. Down below, the city knights mistook the beast for a new enemy, sparking fear that they might attack him. Watching terror spread across the streets, Elthid Adstrom knew they had to act immediately. He shouted for Vaughn to fly back to the forest the moment the sky was cleared. Soaring higher into the air, the Crimson Titan coiled his tail for the strike. A thunderous shockwave from the dragon's tail blasted the winged beasts far beyond the capital walls. With the sky secured, Elthid Adstrom hurried down to reinforce the remaining defenders. Along the streets, exhausted knights held the line against the overwhelming enemy onslaught. Fatigue crushed the guards as their dwindling numbers struggled to protect fleeing civilians. Disaster had struck at the worst hour, with the main army and battle mages away on joint drills. A monster raised its talons over a fallen soldier, but a precise wind shot from Prince Lucia saved his life. Recognizing their aged-up royal, the knights begged Prince Lucia to flee to the palace, yet he flatly refused. The prince calmly insisted on fighting by their side. As the enemy circle tightened, Prince Lucia stepped forward into the fray, demanding they let him fight. Shaken warriors protested in horror, refusing to let their future king risk his life. A magic circle blazed in Prince Lucia's hand as he declared he would not hide as others bled. Noble resolve radiated from the boy, moving the soldiers with his fierce desire to protect them. Right then, another ravenous swarm lunged forward to slaughter the defenders. The stunned commander simply swallowed hard in silence. Fresh resolve ignited in the soldier's eyes, swearing to bring Prince Lucia home without a scratch. Dozens of swords shot into the air around Prince Lucia as the squad rallied for a counterstrike. A confident grin formed on his face, his stand having turned the tide of battle. Gasping for breath, Belza stumbled through the guild hall doors, making her friend shout her name in relief. Silence had gripped the hall just moments before that heavy crash at the entrance. Arnett begged her to rest, but Belza refused, having returned solely to grab her gear. Warning that beasts still flooded the streets, she urged Arnett to evacuate at once. Instead of fleeing, Arnett ran straight to the wounded elf, frantically asking if she was safe. Belza could only whisper her name in return. Clenching her fists, Arnett refuses to run, standing firm as a proud member of the guild. With a nod toward the weapon rack, she brings up the vanguard unit holding the line. Word across the capital confirms that students from the Royal Academy stepped in to protect the citizens. Belza freezes at the mention of a silver-haired prodigy, instantly recognizing Elthid Adstrom. Listening to the grim report from the forest, Belza draws her blade from the crate without hesitation. Arnett confirms her suspicion with a nod, drawing a relieved smile from Belza at his unmistakable tactics. The news of children risking their lives on the front line shatters every trace of her hesitation. Marching toward the exit, Belza vows to shoulder the rest of the battle herself. After securing her gear, Arnett entrusts the guild hall to her comrades before stepping outside. A massive taloned claw slams into the cobblestones right in her path. Springing backward, Arnett evades the lethal swipe by a hair's breadth. Steel clashes against razor-sharp talons with a deafening screech, throwing bright sparks into the air. Gritting her teeth, Arnett mutters that unwanted guests arrived far too soon. A vicious griffin screeches from above, swooping down from the rooftops for the kill. Dodging the initial dive, Arnett catches sight of terrified citizens scattering in panic. Dread grips her chest at the sight of a mother and child frozen in terror before the beast. Trapped by debris, the helpless civilians cower beneath the monster's looming shadow. Arnett throws herself between them and the beast, shouting at the family to run for their lives. The townsfolk scramble to safety as she draws the griffin's entire fury onto herself. Tearfully nodding their gratitude, the mother and daughter dash toward shelter. Spotting an opening as the beast slows, Arnett raises her blade to strike. With one brutal thrust through its skull, she silences the beast's shriek forever. Belza grips her hilt in the adjacent street, bracing herself to plunge into combat. Three multi-eyed black wolves emerge from the shadows, bearing razor-sharp fangs. Her weapon jams inside its scabbard. She wrenches at the grip with all her might, yet the steel refuses to budge. All three beasts leap in unison toward the defenseless Belza. From behind, a panicked cry rings out as snapping jaws shut inches from Belza's face. Meanwhile, a suffocating silence settles over the royal palace, miles away from the chaos. King Wald strides through the halls amid frantic questions regarding envoys and reinforcements. Advisors scramble around him, shouting contradictory reports about border security and the knights. Acknowledging the orders, an aide rushes down the hallway to keep pace with the monarch. King Wald commands the royal quarters opened as makeshift wards for the flood of wounded civilians. Echoing cries fill the palace as he watches the window, knowing potions are gone and knights are delayed. Grimly staring into the distance, cold sweat coats his brow. A breathless guard bursts through the chamber doors with urgent news about Prince Lucia. The knight gasps out that the prince refused his escort, taking the vanguard to purge monsters across the city alone. King Wald seizes the messenger by the shoulders, demanding to know if Prince Lucia is safe. Hearing the stammered reply, the king erupts into roaring laughter that makes every knight in the room flinch. Wiping a tear of relief from his eye, King Wald grins, knowing he never has to worry about that boy again. Clapping the knight on the shoulder, the king declares that Prince Lucia is strong enough to choose his own battles. The knight hesitantly adds that he also spotted someone matching the rumors of the legendary silver-haired adventurer. King Wald smiles broadly, confident that with Prince Lucia and Elthid Adstrom in the fight, hope is far from lost. Out on the shattered streets, Elthid Adstrom steps in front of a trapped citizen and incinerates a black wolf at point-blank range. Stranded civilians still crowd the alleys, forcing the knights into a frantic scramble to shield them. Rescuers quickly surround the shaken man to confirm he escaped without a scratch. Elthid Adstrom pulls the man up and casually calls his high-tier teleportation a simple magic gadget to avoid causing panic. The moment the assault slows, the companions collapse onto a nearby doorstep to catch their breath. Lufend Adstrom Adstrom lets out a heavy, exhausted breath. Glancing at the team, Lufend Adstrom groans and asks if he can just incinerate the whole district instead of hunting strays. Exhaustion takes over as Lufend Adstrom flops flat onto the stone pavement. Seirinze Adstrom snaps that survivors could still be inside the buildings, forcing him to pass it off as a joke. A handy tool tucked away in Elthid Adstrom's pouch comes to mind. His auburn-haired ally warns that casting another massive spell will completely drain his mana reserves. Rather than answering, Elthid Adstrom pulls out an unusual device, catching the girls off guard. With a bright grin, he presents the mana absorption artifact to his bewildered teammates. The relic pulls ambient energy straight from the air, replenishing strength just as effectively as a healing potion. A quick flick of Elthid Adstrom's fingers pops off the protective cap. Seirinze Adstrom holds her breath, bracing for an instant miracle. Dead silence follows, met with 3 completely blank stares. Pinching his fingers sheepishly, Elthid Adstrom admits there is only enough mana for a tiny spark, triggering hysterical laughter. The pieces click in Seirinze Adstrom's mind. If monsters require dense mana to survive, draining the area would eliminate them all at once. Her eyes widen as the full weight of the idea strikes home. Elthid Adstrom laughs off the teasing, but Seirinze Adstrom is already mapping out an entirely new plan of attack. Casting any spell came naturally to Elthid Adstrom, from healing to combat, as long as he held a clear mental image. Looking down at his open palm, he knows magic answers pure visualization over rigid theory. He resolves to craft Erasure Magic, a brand new spell capable of devouring and wiping out every trace of surrounding mana. The defenders initiate their strike against the airborne beasts, picking them off one by one. Elthid Adstrom's comrades charge back into the fray, determined to hold the line so nothing disrupts him. Soaring into the sky, Elthid Adstrom becomes a radiant speck high above the frozen city rooftops. Cold sweat rolls down his brow, yet Elthid Adstrom hardens his resolve for the task ahead. Down below, the entire city holds its collective breath in the creeping silence. An audacious announcement from Elthid Adstrom leaves Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom completely stunned. Just moments earlier, neither believed a spell like Erasure Magic could completely wipe out spatial distortions. Success remains uncertain even to him, but retreating now is out of the question. Their warm hands on his shoulders instantly banish his lingering doubts. Smiling with absolute trust, Lufend Adstrom and Seirinze Adstrom offer their full support. Elthid Adstrom blinks in mild surprise as they eagerly ask for their tactical orders. Savage howls from monstrous hordes shatter the brief peace and echo through the air. Deep gratitude swells in his chest as he looks upon his dependable family. Relentless waves of beasts surge forward, pushing even his formidable siblings toward exhaustion. Seirinze Adstrom flashes a fierce, confident grin back at him. Lufend Adstrom gives a resolute nod, sworn to guard the perimeter and shield the city. Channeling such intricate magic demands pure focus, leaving Elthid Adstrom completely defenseless. Spurred on by their brother, the two charge forth with fresh fury, ripping monsters to shreds. Soaring into the clear sky, Elthid Adstrom centers his mind far above the bloodbath on the ground. A grim vista unfolds below, axe-wielding beasts rampage through streets held by a handful of warriors. To make the spell take root, he must construct a flawless mental blueprint of its effects. Closing his eyes tight, he gathers every ounce of his magical strength. Memory strikes him. Lufend Adstrom once used the Elven Amplifier to siphon away hostile mana. A daring concept takes shape. Why not absorb and dismantle all the rogue energy in the atmosphere? Crossing his arms, he furrows his brow at the sheer audacity of the scheme. A chill grips him. This corrupt power blankets 2 entire cities, daring his mortal body to endure it. One small mistake means certain death. Drawing a deep breath, he gazes at his open palms and locks onto the perfect visualization. Nature provides his blueprint. Fertile soil absorbing organic waste and decomposing it entirely. Elthid Adstrom extends his hands over the sprawling rooftops below. His plan is to blanket the city in mana like earth, swallowing and purifying every hostile trace. Agony rips through his flesh as his mana drains violently, tearing at every muscle fiber. Hovering in midair, he watches colossal pillars of blinding light crash down upon the streets. Seirinze Adstrom cries out his name in utter astonishment. Both siblings thrust their hands forward, raising spell circles to intercept airborne beasts. Excruciating torment doubles him over, yet through the anguish, he feels the formula ignite. Every instinct screams to release the spell, until he spots the shattered houses below. A horrific sight freezes his blood. Black wolves are actively mauling a bloodied Belza. Clenching his jaw, Elthid Adstrom remembers his friends and siblings battling desperately down below. Pushing past tears of agony, he thrusts his palm forward and unleashes his erasure magic. Giving up is out of the question as he pours every drop of strength into ending this nightmare. Neither terror nor pain will make him lose his newfound family and companions. Now comes the final decisive strike. Surging high into the heavens, he radiates a blinding flash across the entire city. Cracks rip through the ominous magical barrier. The dark dome over the rooftops shatters completely, liberating the streets from gloom. Swarms of monsters vaporize beneath the brilliant radiance. A snarling hound from the black wolves bares its fangs as a panicked bat flutters above. Gripping their swords tight, the royal knights glance around in complete shock. Bewildered students from the Royal Academy freeze in their tracks on the open road. Beasts vanish into thin air one after another, leaving only a trail of glowing embers. That sheer brilliance was the spell of Elthid Adstrom, completely purging the city of the horde. Heavy shadows rush over the vision of Elthid Adstrom. All the agonizing pain fades into a soothing warmth, wrapping him like a gentle maternal embrace. His consciousness fades toward absolute blackness. With his final fading thought, he prays he saved everyone, fully aware that zero mana brings death. Watching Elthid Adstrom plunge from the clouds, his companion cries out and conjures a wind spell. Glowing circles flare to life, channeling a powerful updraft straight toward the falling hero. Is this really how it ends? Elthid Adstrom wonders as he plummets through the air. Rushing forward at the final second, his allies catch him and break his brutal fall. Tears stream down their faces as they whisper his name beside his limp form. Desperate cries ring out across the shattered stone, pleading with him to open his eyes. Far in the dark void, familiar voices echo faintly, begging him not to die. Grumbling in annoyance, he tries to swat the noise away and sleep a few more minutes. A stinging slap snaps him awake as a golden-haired goddess of creation refuses to let him snooze. Standing before him is the goddess of creation, addressing him by his past life name, Izaki Rui. Realizing where he is, the grave look from the goddess of creation confirms his worst fear. Scrambling up in terror, he cries out to the goddess of creation, asking if he died all over again. The goddess of creation merely giggles, admitting it was all a prank and sending his temper flaring. He protests that her humor is sick, but the goddess of creation turns solemn, warning he almost died. Sighing in exasperation, she scolds him for reckless behavior and overestimating his own limits. Her lecture continues without mercy, tearing into his foolish gamble. Unfazed by the scolding, Elthid Adstrom cuts her off to ask if the capital is safe and his spell held. She snaps that he can go see for himself, reminding him he spent days lying unconscious instead of waking up. Her voice turns sharp, waste any more time and everyone he loves will perish. Reaching out her hand, goddess of creation scolds him for sleeping through every crisis. Shock washes over Elthid Adstrom as her promise of going home registers. A radiant sphere pulls him in as goddess of creation smiles, promising their paths will cross again. Golden light from his past life envelops him, launching him straight upward. Just before he vanishes, goddess of creation remembers one crucial detail. Locking eyes with Elthid Adstrom, she orders him to find the saint without delay. His eyes snap open as a desperate gasp fills his lungs. The reality of his return sinks in, yet her final parting words slip from his memory. Glancing up, he spots the familiar crystal chandelier of his bedroom inside House Adstrom. Beside the mattress, Lufend Adstrom and Serinze Adstrom rest their heads against the covers. Moving in silence, Elthid Adstrom pushes himself upright against the pillows. The soft rustle of sheets stirs them awake, their drowsy voices calling his name. Rubbing their tired eyes with clenched fists, both siblings mumble in disbelief. A warm, tender smile spreads across his face as he softly greets them. Sitting up in his bed, Elthid Adstrom looks over at Lufend Adstrom and Serinze Adstrom. His voice comes out frail and quiet as he speaks their names. Both siblings freeze at the sound, tears of sheer relief instantly instantly flooding their eyes. Total silence descends across the bedroom for a breathless moment. Even the ticking clock feels halted in the stillness between them. An instant later, Lufend Adstrom and Sirinze Adstrom cry out and throw their arms around him. Weeping uncontrollably, they admit they feared he was gone forever after sleeping for a whole week. Joyful tears stream down their cheeks as they cling tight, celebrating his recovery. Elfid Adstrom manages an apologetic smile, offering heartfelt apologies for causing such terror. Herring 7 days had passed, leaves him stunned, since the ordeal felt like a single hour. Sirinze Adstrom explains his collapse came from severe mana depletion, asking if pain lingers. His first question concerns the capital, and they reassure him Royal Academy is safe thanks to his heroism. Relief washes through Elfid Adstrom, allowing him to release a calm, steady breath. Snapping back to reality, Sirinze Adstrom gasps, eager to deliver the news to Zeland Adstrom. Both dash out into the hallway calling for Arnevi Adstrom and Radia, leaving him to watch in silence. Pausing at the door, Sirinze Adstrom extracts a stern promise never to attempt such madness again, and he timidly agrees. Sinking back against the edge of the mattress, he savors the safety of his family. Flexing his fingers, Elfid Adstrom marvels at how light and refreshed his body feels. A gentle roll of his head loosens the tension lingering in his neck. That strange girl had warned him of an early grave, yet Elfid Adstrom felt completely painless. Lifting his hands toward the window light, sheer disbelief froze him in place. Horror surged through him as his fingers turned transparent, revealing the room straight through his flesh. Weeks passed after the bloody mana anomaly in the capital, allowing Royal Academy to finally reopen. Kairos Enost marched toward the trio with brisk steps, her stern expression thoroughly darkened, cutting across their path. She halted them abruptly in the middle of the corridor. Instead of an angry reprimand, tears of immense relief spilled over her cheeks seeing them alive. Flustered students waved their hands begging her to stop, yet she fiercely denied her own tears. Regaining composure, Kairos Enost checked on Elfid Adstrom's health, met only by his sheepish reassurance. She dried her eyes and praised their defense of the capital after tales of their courage spread across town. Her sharp scowl flared again as she vowed never to let the boy roam under those two rascals' watch. Glancing down at his palm, Elfid Adstrom recalled the eerie instant during battle when his hand turned misty. Sirinze Adstrom noticed his hesitation as he quietly wondered if brushing against death caused the strange fade. His muscles obeyed without friction now, and his magical core flowed as effortlessly as ever. Catching his sister's watchful eye, Elfid Adstrom hid his unease behind a playful grin to spare her worry. The heavy classroom door swung open with a resounding bang, shattering the quiet atmosphere. Adopting her usual commanding tone, Kairos Enost ordered them inside, since morning instruction was underway. Prince Lucia greeted his classmates with a radiant grin, calling out their names across the room. Crossing the threshold alongside Lutena, Elfid Adstrom offered a friendly wave in return. Endless questions poured from Prince Lucia regarding the skirmish as nearby girls giggled with glee. A soft whisper reached Elfid Adstrom from behind the neighboring desk. Excited chatter erupted around Sirinze Adstrom as several girls complimented her fresh hairstyle. Fellow students swarmed the returning heroes, eager for every detail of the monstrous invasion. Shrugging awkwardly, Elfid Adstrom brushed aside the commotion, stunned by how fast gossip traveled. One determined student stepped forward to ask Prince Lucia about conditions in the recovering capital. An authoritative shout from the instructor cut through the clamor, signaling that the bell had rung. Softening her demeanor, she allowed the lively chatter to continue for just a few extra moments. Once seated at his desk, Prince Lucia shared sobering reports on the massive rebuilding efforts in the city. He added that the palace medical stores emptied out completely until Elfid Adstrom's drafts saved the wounded. Mesmerized by the extraordinary results, the chief alchemist prepared a formal inquiry for the mystery brewer. That secret guild shipment weighed on Elfid Adstrom's mind, aware that royal scholars were closing in. Wide-eyed astonishment gripped his friend over the enchanted gear, unaware Elfid Adstrom crafted it from boredom. Yearning to check on his guild allies, Elfid Adstrom planned to slip away toward the capital right after class. Permission came without argument, attached to a strict command to steer clear of danger and only visit comrades. Donning his old travel coat, Elfid Elthid Adstrom realized with a smile how much taller he had grown since arrival. Behind the reception desk, Arnett offered a casual greeting to the patron who had not visited the guild in weeks. Leaning forward for a closer look, she let out a startled gasp upon recognizing Elthid Adstrom. After returning Arnett's greeting, Elthid Adstrom eyed the chaotic crowd, prompting her smile about the endless rush of reconstruction requests. Her expression turned grave as Arnett delivered stunning news. Guild leadership had been waiting for him. Dread gripped Elthid Adstrom over rumors of monsters crippling Belza, urging him to push the office door open. Finding his injured comrade inside, Elthid Adstrom voiced alarm over her wounds, though Belza brushed his concern aside as nothing serious. Disbelief held Elthid Adstrom fast, knowing ordinary magic and top-tier elixirs could never mend trauma that severe. Belza swiftly changed the subject, pressing him about rumors that someone matching his exact description had quelled the city monsters. A warm smile softened Belza's face as she offered heartfelt thanks to Elthid Adstrom for checking in on her. Awkward protests tumbled from Elthid Adstrom, but Belza broke into cheerful laughter at his unrelenting modesty. Waving his hands sheepishly, Elthid Adstrom insisted the townspeople blew his role in the defense way out of proportion. With downcast eyes, Elthid Adstrom muttered that the feat was pure chance, made possible only through family aid. Sincere gratitude from the wounded Belza left Elthid Adstrom stammering once more. Surprised, yet curious, Belza nodded and granted him permission to proceed. Elthid Adstrom had tentatively offered his healing magic, catching the injured elf completely off guard. Glancing down at his palm, Elthid Adstrom felt his control over magical energy grow sharper than ever. Memories flashed back to the day this exact technique had restored a crippled forest hare. That solitary moment marked his first true breakthrough. Gathering his focus, Elthid Adstrom extended both hands toward Belza's bandaged shoulder. Soothing heat enveloped Belza as she carefully flexed her fingers and peeled the medical wrap away. Shock anchored her in place, unable to comprehend the sight before her. A piercing shout rattled the hall, and the door burst open as onlookers rushed toward the noise. Belza leaped to her feet without a trace of injury remaining, leaving her companion gasping in disbelief. The bandage slipped away from her shoulder, her fingers flexing freely without a hint of pain, slowly clenching her hand into a fist. Belza whispered in astonishment that her arm functioned just like before. Tears broke from Arnett in raw disbelief that a right arm deemed permanently crippled was fully healed. In a trembling voice, Arnett asked if every bit of the damage had truly vanished. Weeping uncontrollably, Arnett threw her arms around Belza's neck with joyous shouts. Belza called out to Elthid Adstrom, startling him out of his reverie. Returning the hug, Belza gave profound thanks to Elthid Adstrom for restoring her ability to grip a sword. Loud sobs still racked Arnett, leaving Belza to pat her back in clumsy reassurance. Flashing another warm smile at her savior, Belza watched Elthid Adstrom scratch his head in bewilderment over his own power. Through her tears, Arnett confessed how bitterly she hated standing helpless as Belza suffered before her eyes. A firm grip caught Elthid Adstrom by the shoulder. Looking sternly into his eyes, Belza declared that healers of his caliber were an extreme rarity. Stepping right into his face, she hisses that such power will get him locked in a dungeon and exploited for the rest of his life. Elthid Adstrom throws his hands up in panic, praying she is only exaggerating. Stopping before a massive estate, Elthid Adstrom breathes a sigh of relief at finally reaching his destination. Down along the avenue, Elthid Adstrom hears townsfolk whisper about the mystery warrior who wiped out the monster horde alone. Claire calls out his name, gaping at the catastrophic wreckage left across the district. Jogging over, Elthid Adstrom asks if she joined the city reconstruction effort. A heavy sigh escapes Claire as she sizes up the rubble, yet she refuses to back down. Her sharp eyes lock onto his silver hair, forcing a flustered Elthid Adstrom to steer the topic straight back to labor. Gushing over the mythical savior of the capital, Claire never suspects that her hero stands right in front of her. A shout from a nearby laborer cuts their conversation short. Turning around in bewilderment, Claire searches for the voice. Massive wooden support beams come into view, leaving Claire stunned by their sheer scale. Up on the scaffolding, carpenters shout down for someone to hoist the heavy timber. Elthid Adstrom casts levitation to float the heavy timber upward, though a dumbfounded worker still mistakes him for a little girl. Finishing his shift in the rubble, Elthid Adstrom retreats indoors to brew his signature potions. Days blur into a whirlwind of classes, reconstruction duties, and turning away desperate guild reps begging for exclusive medicine deals. That peaceful grind shatters when King Wald summons Elthid Adstram for a private royal audience. King Wald gets straight to the point, bringing up the capital crisis and the rumors surrounding a mysterious silver-haired student. Tension grips Elthid Adstrom, realizing his uncle is probing him about his secret identity as the legendary adventurer. With an amused grin, King Wald asks if Elthid Adstrom happens to know this hero who looks identical to the famed S-rank adventurer. Teasing him playfully, King Wald calls Elthid Adstrom as adorable as ever, earning only an annoyed scowl. Elthid Adstrom snaps and demands how he uncovered the truth, but King Wald simply shrugs and reveals it was never a secret to him. Outside the chamber doors, Zeland Adstrom wonders what scheme his sly brother is cooking up this time. Pointing to official records, King Wald notes how many reconstruction quests Elthid Adstrom cleared through the guild. A wave of panic hits Elthid Adstrom, dreading a harsh scolding for acting without permission. King Wald groans about disrupted trade balances and mounting paperwork before bringing up the miracle potion Elthid Adstrom created. The entire kingdom buzzes with rumors of the elixir. King Wald remarks casually, though Elthid Adstrom merely waves it off. Acknowledging how the medicine saved the capital during the shortage, King Wald reassures him, though Elthid Adstrom remains wary of his true motives. Touching his bright white hair awkwardly, Elthid Adstrom listens as King Wald points out that hiding in plain sight with such striking looks is impossible. Defeated, Elthid Adstrom puffs out his cheeks and accepts that his cover has been blown completely. To deflect dangerous suspicion, King Wald proposes crowning Elthid Adstrom as the prodigy hero of the Royal Academy who saved the realm. Prince Lucia steps forward with a grin to hype up the grand public proclamation. Beaming with excitement, Prince Lucia declares he will personally bestow the one-star medal upon Elthid Adstrom. A panicked scream from Elthid Adstrom echoes throughout the royal halls of Adlard. The following morning, heralds announce the start of the grand investiture inside the majestic throne room. Walking past whispering nobles in the grand hall, Elthid Adstrom wondered how his simple life had spiraled into this royal spectacle. Catching sight of House Adstrom in the gallery steadied his shaking knees. His proud family beamed with joy, calling out cheers of encouragement from the front row. King Wald called out the name of Elthid Adstrom, who answered with a respectful nod. The monarch studied the boy's features, searching for any divine link to the saint. Standing off to the side, Prince Lucia watched in silence, quietly turning the name over in his mind. Expressing royal gratitude for saving the capital, King Wald asked for a formal oath of loyalty to Adlard. Bowing low, Elthid Adstrom recited the pledge flawlessly, grateful for the rehearsal drilled into him by Zeland Adstrom. Bestowing the one-star medal upon him, King Wald urged the young noble to keep serving the realm with honor. Touching the glittering one-star medal over his chest, Elthid Adstrom delivered his closing thanks and let out a quiet sigh of relief. Tears filled the eyes of onlookers throughout the hall as thunderous cheers hailed their savior, dwarfed by the grand palace walls. Elthid Adstrom winced at the realization that peaceful strolls through the city were gone forever. The morning after the ceremony, a massive crowd gathered outside the Royal Academy gates to crush his hopes of a quiet day. Starstruck students instantly swarmed him from every angle. Word of the one-star medal had spread like wildfire, blocking every path to his classroom. Frenzied admirers bombarded him with questions about the battle, screaming out marriage proposals. Sirenze Adstrom and Lufend Adstrom rushed in to help, allowing Elthid Adstrom to cast levitation magic and lift them over the sea of fans. Peering out a second-floor window, a classmate stared in disbelief at the airborne trio. The glass window frame swung wide with a loud clatter. The aerial stunt only fueled the crowd's excitement, drawing deafening cheers that made Elthid Adstrom regret the extra attention. All three tumbled clumsily over the windowsill onto the classroom floor to their classmates' amusement. The bell tower chimed for homeroom, cementing Elthid Adstrom's decision to teleport directly into his seat tomorrow. Whispers rippled through the desks without a moment of peace. Kyrus Enost cut through the chatter to announce the start of the general examination period. Tests stirred up painful memories of his his past life as Izaki Rui. Yet academic work in this world came effortlessly. The chalkboard filled with next week's testing schedule, opening with 3 demanding written exams. News of an intergrade combat tournament struck Elthid Adstrom with genuine dread. Zirinze Adstrom explained that these trials drew massive crowds across Adlard, headed by King Wald himself. Lufend Adstrom bounced with joy at the prospect of their parents visiting, unlike Serinze Adstrom, who dreaded the written exams. Munching on a sweet treat, Serinze Adstrom fretted over facing formidable upperclassmen in combat. A grinning shadow materialized behind Lufend Adstrom as Lunar Fellman stepped forward, gripping Lufend Adstrom by the collar. Lunar Fellman dragged the boy off for remedial study, despite his frantic protests. Before Serinze Adstrom could offer sympathy, another heavy hand clamped onto her own shoulder. With an echoing crash, the classroom door slammed shut. Left alone in the room, Elthid Adstrom barely began savoring the peace before fingers tapped his back. Arnevi Adstrom dragged Serinze Adstrom away with a bright smile for private magic sparring. Bracing for another brutal sword lesson, Elthid Adstrom spun around to face his father. Instead of drawing a blade, Zeland Adstrom simply told him to get some sleep after his grueling trials. Even so, the Margrave creeping up without a sound scared El out of his wits. Ever since the capital crisis, his parents refused to let him go, knowing how close they came to losing him. A tired sigh escaped Zeland Adstrom, dreading that his son would push his limits past the breaking point again. Morning arrived for day 2, shifting the exam to the colossal stone arena. Day 1 had wrapped up without a hitch, the written tests posing zero challenge. High in the VIP stands, Zeland Adstrom watched over the grounds with commanding presence. Beside him, Arnevi Adstrom cheered eagerly, waving her hands at the spectacle below. Further down the imperial box sat King Wald, observing the arena with regal gravity. Classmates pointed in awe at the balcony, stunned to see House Adstrom sitting beside King Wald. What caught Elthid Adstrom off guard was the massive crowd of foreign dignitaries filling the seats. A booming voice echoed across the stadium, announcing the opening matches. Scanning the gallery, El paused at the sight of beastfolk, a rare presence within Adlard. Veiled figures in strange, heavy robes huddled close by, murmuring in secret. Taking the mic, as commentator stood the student council president herself, Philunia Wells. Her crisp voice snapped El to attention as the battle line formed for the qualifiers. Heavy warding on their uniforms and solid barriers meant everyone could unleash their full combat power. Lunar Fellman sternly warned El to conserve his mana and stay within safe limits. The rules were simple: sever the bell from a rival's neck or wring them out of the boundary. Prince Lucia and Lutena took the stage as top contenders, drawing Elthid Adstrom's sharp gaze. Cheers erupted through the arena in anticipation of a high-stakes clash between titans. Contenders locked eyes across the ring, waiting for the starting horn under breathless silence. The instant the horn blew, Prince Lucia expanded a magic circle, blanketing the arena in thick smoke. Philunia Wells faltered mid-sentence as bells clattered to the floor beneath frantic shouts. Spectators heard only the flurry of strikes, unable to pierce the blinding white shroud. Through the haze, Philunia Wells caught sight of deliberate footsteps stepping toward the edge. Emerging from the clearing fog, Prince Lucia smiled calmly, holding a handful of severed bells. 7 students fell in a heartbeat, leaving only 3 fighters standing on the stone floor. Noble spectators marveled at Prince Lucia's sensory skill, striking unseen targets with pure hearing. The entire arena erupted in wild applause at such overwhelming dominance. Circling the ring, the 3 remaining fighters guarded their distance before the next strike, breaking the standoff. Prince Lucia surged forward in an explosive dash. Lutena reacted without missing a beat, chanting her spell as a luminous circle flared to life. Prince Lucia moved with blinding speed. Within a second, Lutena lost her balance. Stunned on the ground, Lutena heard her bell chime as Prince Lucia flashed past her. Maintaining his blistering pace, Prince Lucia targeted his next white-haired opponent. Spectators gasped in awe, recognizing high-tier body reinforcement magic at work. The mage completed his incantation just in time, hurling a massive fireball straight at Prince Lucia. Staring in disbelief, the rival watched Prince Lucia sidestep the flames and close the distance in a flash. Cold composure radiated from Prince Lucia as he charged through the smoke. A hand gripped the rival's collar before the terrified student could even react. Securing every last bell within seconds, Prince Lucia flashed a winning smile. Classmates in the stands erupted in cheers, stunned by the raw power of his enhancement magic. Stepping forward with a warm grin, Prince Lucia offered his hand to help the defeated student up. Up in the royal box, King Wald wiped his sweaty palms as an attendant teased him for losing his royal composure. Qualification matches unfolded across 3 arenas, with the second ring known as the Group of Death. Tension mounted as the arena prepared for the next duel. The announcer bellowed the next contender's name, Lufend Adstrom of Elite Class 1S. Anxiety rippled through his watching friends, well aware of his habit of going completely overboard. Voices from the stands screamed in unison to cheer Lufend Adstrom on. A confident grin crept across Lufend Adstrom's face, determined to strike with full force from the opening bell. Raising an arm, he offered the crowd a playful wave. The start signal echoed, and Lufend Adstrom's eyes flared with wild fury as he unleashed his explosion spell. A towering wall of catastrophic black flames swept across the arena, obliterating everything in its path. Screaming in panic, his opponents scattered in every direction to flee the inferno. The blast proved so fierce that the dome's emergency barrier triggered, shielding the crowd from disaster. Smoke parted to reveal Lufend Adstrom standing untouched amid the scorched wasteland, victorious. Stunned gasps spread among the onlookers, amazed that a first-year student triggered the arena's safety shield. Murmurs swept the crowd, reeling from such reckless power and trusting the protective dome to hold. Karis Enost scolded Lufend Adstrom for his recklessness, noting that the barrier had barely been repaired. Uneasy glances followed the fiery student as he walked back to his seat. Turning to Elthid Adstrom, Karis Enost warned him sternly to hold back his monstrous power. The arena speakers blared the next blockbuster matchup, freshman Elthid Adstrom versus 6th-year Philunea Wells. With Philunea Wells preparing for combat, another student stepped up to take the commentator's microphone. Cheerful Vice President Zellard took the stage, greeting the roaring audience with a beaming smile. Thunderous cheers for the kingdom's hero shook the stadium, leaving Elthid Adstrom frozen in shock. A sharp horn blared across the battlefield to start the match. Under the watchful gaze of the packed arena, Elthid Adstrom cursed the loudmouthed upperclassman. That brief split second of hesitation cost him the initiative as his opponent closed the distance in a flash. Mid-stride, she deployed a brilliant magic circle right before him. A razor-sharp blade of pure ice formed in her grip, forcing Elthid Adstrom to tense up. Metal crashed against mana when his honeycomb barrier snapped into place to intercept the lethal thrust. She flashed a fierce smirk, impressed that he raised such a solid defense without chanting a single word. Upping the ante, she unleashed a lethal hail of ice shards, driving Elthid Adstrom to counter with a devastating wall of fire. A colossal pillar of blinding flames roared skyward, sending spectators scrambling back from the blast zone. Elthid Adstrom stared at the roaring inferno in disbelief, worried he had unleashed far too much power. A concussive shockwave blew the remaining combatants off their feet, tossing them clear outside the ring. Left completely alone in the ring with him, the girl wiped sweat from her brow and flashed a savage grin. Flames still swirled across the scorched ground as stunned students stared in terror at the destruction. Philunea Wells unleashed a relentless barrage of her signature frost blades, peppering the entire stage. Anchoring his mana shield against the storm, Elthid Adstrom searched desperately for an opening to counter. The commentator roared into the mic that another blazing pillar would finish the duel in a single strike. Scorching heat from his earlier blast still washed over the commentary booth high above the stands. That initial display of overwhelming firepower left every single witness in the arena completely paralyzed. Feeling a suffocating aura beside him, the announcer nervously turned to Karis Enost for her verdict. She coldly warned that his fiery blast nearly shattered the stadium defensive dome. Sensing the lethal pressure beyond his shield, Elthid Adstrom knew another massive blast meant instant instant disqualification. Her relentless onslaught pushed forward without mercy, driving him back step by step. The entire crowd held their breath in dead silence. His classmates screamed his name from the benches, begging him to hold his ground and win. Tracking her every movement, he caught his only opening in the split second she began her win chant. The relentless frost barrage abruptly ceased. Relief vanished instantly as Philunia Wells hoisted massive ice lances overhead, ready to drop a fatal deluge. Elthid Adstrom thrust his palm forward, firing a rapid barrage of dense water bullets. High-speed liquid projectiles rocketed straight toward the descending frozen spikes. Disbelief struck him when his attack shattered harmlessly, the word wind echoing through his thoughts. Those dense water spheres were built to punch clean through monster armor. Gale force currents wrapped tightly around the sharp frozen tips. Spiraling wind coated every single spear, transforming simple ice magic into an unstoppable battering ram. Scrambling back, he watched in awe as she fused two distinct elements into one devastating technique. "Barrier!" Elthid Adstrom shouted, throwing up his shield right before impact. Philunia Wells grinned like a predator, entirely confident in her victory despite his stubborn defense. Her mocking challenge leaves Elthid Adstrom no choice but to reveal his hidden trump card. Launching straight upward, he channels body reinforcement magic to supercharge his speed. Stunned gasps ripple across the stands as his hand shoots straight toward her target bell. Philunia Wells reacts in a flash, intercepting the lunge with her drawn blade. Frost instantly crawls across the steel, locking both blades in a thick glaze of ice. Freezing air from her sword is meant to numb his limbs and dismantle his physical reinforcement. "Rise, mud!" Elthid Adstrom shouts across the clash. A dense wall of earth surges upward between them, cutting off her freezing strike. Annoyance flashes across her face as the ground beneath her shifts into a closing trap. Churning mud surges around Philunia Wells, pinning her down right up to her shoulders. Stepping past the barrier, Elthid Adstrom casually drops into a crouch beside her. Struggling proves useless as the damp mire hardens into solid rock. Conceding defeat, she compliments his clever fusion of water and earth spells. Grinning back, he admits the entire trick came straight from her own advice. A soft chime rings out as he unhooks the silver bell from her waist. Raising the prize high overhead, he brings the stadium to a deafening roar. Up in the bleachers, Zellard hollers in excitement, making the two fighters exchange tired smiles. The announcer blares the sensational news. Freshman Elthid Adstrom has toppled the tournament favorite. Asked about his silent casting, he jokes that he simply whispers his incantations under his breath. Returning to his group, Elthid Adstrom rubs the back of his neck with an awkward smile. Heated debates and cheers continue to echo across the spectator stands. Jubilant shouts ring out as his two classmates rush forward to congratulate him. Serinze Adstrom locks him in a tight hug and peppers him with questions until her own match is called. The taste of victory turns his thoughts toward future clashes against Prince Lucia or his own brother. Quiet focus settles over his thoughts. A confident smirk of anticipation brightens his face. His eyes follow her confident march toward the arena floor amid roaring applause. A firm hand claps his shoulder as the bell sounds for the next contest. Both boys throw all their energy into shouting encouragement from the front row. Serinze Adstrom attacks from the opening second, unleashing a tempest spell through her magic crest. Her friends watch in amazement as she deflects every heavy blow from Zellard. Blown off his feet by the howling gale, the senior crashes hard onto the arena stone. Refusing to ease up, she summons a majestic winged wind spirit behind her. The referee declares Serinze Adstrom the winner after her spirit magic dominates the entire ring. Lufend Adstrom and Elthid Adstrom slap hands in a jubilant high five, celebrating her victory. Fingers slip straight through thin air, grasping nothing. Lifting his hands to his face, Elthid Adstrom stares in utter disbelief at what is happening to his body. Flesh turns translucent before his eyes, proving this ghostly fade was no one-time fluke. As Elthid Adstrom examines his vanishing fingertips, Lufend Adstrom recoils in dread at the empty air. Roaring arena crowds drown out the moment. Lufend Adstrom grabs his brother, terrified, demanding answers. Exposure would bring absolute disaster down on them, but a familiar shout cuts through their panic. Bounding toward them with a radiant grin, Serinze Adstrom cheers loudly about her grand victory. His attention attempt to wave it off only horrifies them further. This fading nightmare has struck twice now. Tears spill over as both siblings refuse to back off, fiercely protective of their younger brother. Trapped in their desperate, crushing embrace, Elthid Adstrom offers a quiet, apologetic smile. Deep warmth swells in his chest, fighting back tears at such fierce, unconditional devotion. Rushing onto the scene, an academy instructor calls Lufend Adstrom to the arena for his duel. Unchecked erasure magic was eroding his form, born entirely from the sheer power of his imagination. Shouting in tears, panicked classmates sprint across the courtyard to fetch an instructor. Solid flesh rematerializes, yet the entire squad immediately forfeits the tournament to keep him safe. Hoisting the champion's cup, Prince Lucia feels hollow, having craved a true clash with Elthid Adstrom. Cheering crowds celebrate a stunning freshman victory that unseated the great prodigies of House Adstrom. With the arena roar fading into silence, the grand trials at the Royal Academy finally conclude. Days later, quiet footsteps echo across the vacant arena grounds as Elthid Adstrom returns alone. Fierce lectures still ring in his ears after his allies barred him from ever being reckless again. Behind him, a calm and familiar voice cuts through the stillness. Prince Lucia steps into view, catching the quiet mood and offering a bold new proposal. Even thorough examinations from the headmaster and top medics found zero trace of bodily damage. Whistling through the air, a wooden practice sword flies straight toward Elthid Adstrom's grasp. With a confident smirk, Prince Lucia challenges him to the private duel they both longed for. Raising his blade, Prince Lucia demands they settle the score left unfinished during the tournament. Wood crashes against wood with a sharp crack as their blades ignite the empty arena. Under agreed terms, no body reinforcement magic is allowed, only pure swordplay and minor decoy spells. Victory hinges on a single clean hit to the head, a solid strike to the chest, or a clean disarm. Prince Lucia charges in first, met instantly by a blinding flash of light from Elthid Adstrom's palm. Hardwood whistles through the air before locking together in another fierce clash. Elthid Adstrom grins with satisfaction, relishing the thrill of a genuine challenge. Gripping his hilt tight, Prince Lucia answers with an equally fierce spark in his eyes. Both fighters spring apart, instantly resetting their stances for the next explosive exchange. Prince Lucia leaps in with an overhead strike, met by Elthid Adstrom's flawless high guard. A fierce exchange of strikes erupted across the ring, every slash met with a punishing parry. Trained by the sword saint himself, Prince Lucia still believed no peer his age could match him. He shattered the ground underfoot, forcing Elthid Adstrom to launch into the air with wind magic. Once the dust cleared, Elthid Adstrom recognized the formidable skill behind Prince Lucia's strike. Lowering their blades, both duelists traded broad grins, thrilled by the intensity of the clash. Facing his father's true strength was impossible for Prince Lucia, whose 6-year-old body still had limits. Recalling his mother's brutal drills, Elthid Adstrom nodded at how harsh royal standards truly were. Prince Lucia flashed a competitive grin upon realizing where such raw resilience came from. Asked about his close-quarters skill, Prince Lucia confirmed his swordsmanship was forged purely for survival. A bold challenge left Prince Lucia's lips, and Elthid Adstrom eagerly accepted the provocation. Closing the distance to force melee combat, Elthid Adstrom ran straight into Prince Lucia's Gale Blast. Confusion flared through Elthid Adstrom for a heartbeat, suspecting the attack had missed wide. Realizing his rival was flanking from behind, Elthid Adstrom lost his footing on the slick stone. To evade the incoming sweep, Elthid Adstrom contorted his body in midair with razor focus. Pure strain tightened his features as he fought to regain momentum. Without solid ground beneath him, Elthid Adstrom unleashed a commanding roar to the wind. Prince Lucia recoiled as the unexpected aerial counter slammed down toward him. A sharp strike tore through the empty air with whistling force. The practiced sword flew from Prince Lucia's grip, leaving him frozen in utter disbelief. Soaring overhead, Elthid Adstrom cocked his wooden blade to deliver the decisive blow. Prince Lucia instantly recognized the localized vortex Elthid Adstrom had summoned underfoot. Shouting a fierce battle cry, Elthid Adstrom plummeted straight down like a hawk. His fingers locked around the hilt with unyielding grip. The wooden blade halted a millimeter from Prince Lucia's nose, freezing him in place. Disarmed, the prince's fallen sword rattled across the arena floor, Catching his breath, Elthid Adstrom asked quietly if the duel was truly settled. Anxious doubt surfaced as he checked whether unleashing personal magic broke the rules. Prince Lucia offered a warm grin, praising the maneuver as brilliant, legitimate strategy. Without an ounce of bitterness, the young royal conceded the match. Elthid Adstrom reached out to pull his friend up, sparking a blinding flash as their hands met. Rather than burning, the radiant pulse wrapped them in a soothing wave of warmth. Both duelists stared at their palms in mutual bewilderment. Setting the mystery aside, for now, they chose to make their way back side by side. Probing about the mysterious glow, Elthid Adstrom watched Prince Lucia hastily blame the arena wards. Even if Prince Lucia was the true origin of that light, both boys simply stretched, enjoying their post-duel relief. Elthid admits that fighting alongside true friends brought him deep joy, even if his family still worried over past stumbles. Prince Lucia steers the conversation toward their upcoming shared academy exams. A startled blink breaks across Elthid's face. Warm gratitude softens his expression into a gentle smile. Recognizing the prince's clumsy attempt to lift his spirits, Elthid offers heartfelt thanks. Prince Lucia brushes it off with a grin, declaring Elthid his first genuine friend. Once viewed as an eccentric royal, the prince now commands deep respect with his unvarnished sincerity. Such noble honesty will surely draw loyal allies and shape him into a magnificent king. Yet the mystery behind Elthid's vanishing, translucent arm remains unsolved. Soon, Royal Academy announces a 2-week break before finals. Zeland Adstrom grants his son freedom on one condition: avoid reckless risks and report any strange symptoms at once. Armed with permission, the young prodigy dives straight into swordplay and fire magic drills. Dropping by the guild during recess, Elle stacks magic crystals onto the counter, stunning the receptionist. Time accelerates as the quiet break rushes forward. Fascination grips Elle as Lufend Adstrom crafts astonishing magic tools in his workshop. An unexpected invitation to the royal palace arrives from Prince Lucia that afternoon. Catching the fierce glint in her eyes, Elle desperately wishes he could turn and run. Cheeks blushing bright crimson, she eagerly asks if she can pat his head. Lutena showers little Elle with adoring pats, gushing over his cuteness as he mumbles awkward thanks. Enduring this fuss was never his plan. The chaos started just minutes earlier. Right now, classmate Lutena shamelessly ruffles his hair with a radiant smile. It all began in the parlor when she discovered Elle is only 5, using disguise magic for school. Breath catches in Lutena's throat as her gaze locks onto the tiny boy. Stunned whispers escape her lips, marveling at how rare growth magic truly is. Her next demand sends a sharp shiver down the boy's spine. Arriving at the palace on Prince Lucia's invite, Elle kept his true child form, unaware a classmate was present. Eyes sparkling with delight, Lutena reaches out to pinch those squishy cheeks. Faced with a blunt refusal, she clasps her hands together, pleading for at least a head pat. Prince Lucia and Lufend Adstrom chuckle at the sight. Elle burns with pure embarrassment. Resigned to total defeat, Elle falls gloomily quiet. Arms spreading wide, the girl insists on pulling him straight onto her lap. A reluctant compromise leaves the boy enduring relentless, affectionate petting. Elle desperately hopes someone enters soon, drawing her focus away and granting him escape. Awkward silence thickens until everyone silently prays for Prince Lucia to rush in and break the mood. Doors swing open at last, revealing Prince Lucia in his adorable 10-year-old form, stammering apologies for the delay. Across the room, the dark-haired girl pats her blonde friend on the head with a smirk, teasing her about betrayal. Prince Lucia catches her sour pout and asks if she is sulking, earning an indignant huff. Their rematch at the chessboard ends in seconds as Prince Lucia calls checkmate again, leaving her clutching her head. Admitting his sheer skill, she demands another round, and the prince gladly accepts the challenge. Flawless in studies, combat, and games, Elthid Adstrom casts growth magic to resume his adult form. Over on the sofa, his brother dozes peacefully beneath an open book, adding to the quiet warmth of the room. Sipping tea, the girls giggle as they talk about how easily time slips by inside the palace. Prince Lucia softly admits this is his first time truly relaxing with friends, hoping he did not act awkward. Touched by his genuine honesty, she smiles warmly as the remaining tension melts away. A startling realization strikes her, freezing her in place with wide eyes. Recovering quickly, she beams and insists that sharing the fun is all that matters. Elthid playfully teases Prince Lucia, pointing out that even a flawless royal heir has weaknesses. The laughter cuts short when a servant opens the door, announcing that King Wald has summoned Elthid. Only moments ago they were passionately debating their moves, eager to set up the board again. The servant fidgets with visible unease, keeping his eyes glued to the floor, reluctant to part ways. Prince Lucia asks to accompany his friend to the royal chambers. That hope vanishes instantly when the messenger confirms the king wants to speak with Elthid alone. Standing before the massive double doors of the study, a grim premonition grips Elthid. The sheer mystery of this urgent audience leaves his pulse racing with tension. To make matters stranger, the servant delivers a bizarre demand. King Wald wants him in his 5-year-old form. The reason behind such an absurd masquerade remains an utter mystery. Left with no other choice, Elthid dispels his disguise and shrinks back into an innocent child. As the heavy doors swing open, Elthid finds King Wald and Zeland Adstrom joined by 2 unfamiliar guests. Seated across the lavish lounge, 2 unexpected figures watch the doorway closely. 2 young noblewomen stare wide-eyed at the little boy, trying to piece together his identity. With keen curiosity, the long-haired guest examines him, recalling the wild rumors echoing through the palace. Elthid freezes in surprise upon hearing the name of the neighboring Lambda Empire, their peace-bound ally. Bowing with practiced grace, she introduces herself as Vince, Chancellor of the Lambda Empire, hailing him as the Saint. Visible confusion fills the room, but King Wald breaks the tension with a warm smile and enthusiastic applause. As Elthid puzzles over his strange new title, the stern redhead beside Vince urges her companion to stop causing a scene. King Wald invites everyone to sit, ready to formally introduce his distinguished guest to the boy. Shock roots Elthid to the spot. Standing before him is the ruler of an entire empire, barely 15 years old. Wasting no time, the young sovereign reveals that a devastating mana anomaly has gripped her lands as well. This royal guest is Ceres Lambda, the dignified young sovereign commanding the neighboring empire. Her voice turns solemn as she explains how relentless monster hordes are overrunning her realm, exhausting soldiers and civilians alike. Elthid Adstrom grasps the stakes instantly. Their neighbors face the exact mystery threat that nearly leveled their own capital. Ceres Lambda recalls how he quelled the previous catastrophe, yet he brushes off the praise, insisting others helped. Stepping forward, the guest recites an ancient prophecy of a divine herald, crowned in snow-white hair and violet eyes. Continental royalty knows the legend of this savior by heart, and every gaze in the hall turns straight back toward him. His deeds and appearance match the myth to the letter, leaving Elthid no choice but to nod in flustered surrender. A vivid memory strikes. Back when death loomed close, the goddess of creation begged him to find the saint. Asked if the saint can avert disaster, the girl slams her palm against the table. Precisely. Total bewilderment grips Elthid and his companion as they stare at her outburst. Rubbing his chin sheepishly, the man admits the old tale got the better of him. Her red-haired companion steps in to quiet the fiery Vince, whose face flushes with instant embarrassment. "I believe Elthid is the Saint Reborn," Vince proclaims, pressing a fist against her chest. His student identity and guild ties were mere smoke, shielding Elthid from ruthless political intrigue. King Wald smirks, noting their guests crossed borders purely because rumors of the saint reached their ears. Sending them away empty-handed feels too dull, so the monarch turns to his brother, Zeland Adstrom. The truth hits Elthid like a hammer. They kept him in a 5-year-old body because no one drags a toddler to war. Calmly turning back, King Wald asks how the young women feel about the Margrave's proposal. Hearing the title of Sword Saint Zeland Adstrom stuns the guests into silence, leaving Elthid shocked by his father's immense fame. With a relieved smile, the red-haired envoy acknowledges that the backing of such a warrior guarantees ironclad security. Zeland Adstrom steps up with firm resolve, demanding royal permission to mobilize without delay. Outside by the window, the girl vows to fight with everything she has, no matter what lies ahead. Once the emissaries depart, heavy silence settles over the men left behind. Rushing to his father's side, little Elthid calls out in a hushed whisper. To secure their path, Zeland Adstrom orders his ally to ready reinforcements and pledges to lead the vanguard himself. Pulling his son tight, the father warns that a mana anomaly ravages the Lambda Empire, leaving no place for a child. A tense pause hangs between them as he searches for the right words. Gripping the boy's trembling shoulders with crushing force, he orders Elthid to stay locked inside the castle. Desperation cracks Zeland Adstrom's voice as he begs his son never to unleash that catastrophic magic again. Fingers digging into his palm, Elthid Adstrom remembers just how close death came last time. He offers an obedient nod, terrified of bringing grief upon his family. Heavy iron gates groan and crash wide open moments later. Vaulting onto his warhorse, Zeland Adstrom barks the command to move out. Armored cavalry thunders forward, galloping toward the Lambda Empire capital engulfed by the mana anomaly. Without a heartbeat of hesitation, the commander leads his detachment straight into danger. Blocked teleportation, magic forces the entire vanguard to rely solely on raw horse speed. Eyes locked onto the distant road, Elthid charges ahead with cold sweat running down his face. Elthid Adstrom remembered his father's vow to avoid forbidden spells, yet the man had marched straight into danger anyway. Shaking off the dread proved impossible, no matter how much he blamed his own racing nerves. Massive crimson wings sheared through the cloud cover. Vaughn grumbled that he was no common horse, though his rider just chuckled and told him to lighten up. A bright grin lit Elthid Adstrom's face as he called the winged giant his most reliable partner. Down on the road, Zeland Adstrom led his cavalry forward in a thunder of pounding hooves. Reins snapped tight, bringing the horses to a dead stop at the forest edge. One look into the valley twisted the Margrave's face in sheer shock. Across the open plains, swarms of beasts tore through a squad of knights in sheer carnage. Armored defenders swung frantically against fanged horrors closing in from every side. The mana anomaly had turned the perimeter into a waking nightmare crawling with winged fiends. Out from the chaos sprinted a scout, met immediately by Zeland Adstrom demanding a sitrep. Relief washed over her as she hailed the Sword Saint, though he calmly asked to be called Margrave. Though civilians were safe, the palace perimeter was crumbling under overwhelming monster waves. One clear objective remained: hold the fortress walls at all costs. Zeland Adstrom offered a reassuring smile, reaffirming their treaty and the relief supplies brought for the crown. Her breath hitched in stunned silence. Discovering wagons packed with vital medicines from King Wald brought tears of gratitude to her eyes. Gazing toward the horizon, the Margrave warned that this mana anomaly would soon consume the entire continent. Cold sweat broke across his brow as the sheer scale of the looming disaster sank in. High above the canopy circled monstrous flocks, forcing ancient legends aside until the battle was won. A colossal beast bared its razor fangs toward the fortress ramparts. Claws shattered defenses in the courtyard as frantic soldiers screamed to pull the wounded back. Every path for a counterattack vanished instantly. Relentless monster strikes hammered down with brutal momentum, breaking bone through plate armor. Collapsing stone sealed the final retreat route, trapping the fallen on the wrong side. Flying fiends and ruthless reptiles swarmed the stronghold, turning the yard into a slaughterhouse. When a lone knight dropped his guard for a second, a scaled predator lunged for the kill. "Behind you!" his comrade screamed, desperate to ward off the fatal blow. The defensive line buckled under the crushing enemy tide. A brilliant silver arc sliced the air, decapitating the beast right before the paralyzed guardsman. Stunned soldiers instantly recognized the legendary blade of Zeland Adstrom. Behind their commander surged the long-awaited reinforcements, turning the tide on the battlefield. Zeland Adstrom insisted on his Margrave title, his retainers quick to explain he detested the boastful Sword Saint moniker. An armored sentry warned that high mana density empowered the horde ahead, yet the vanguard pushed forward without hesitation. Zeland Adstrom raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. Stepping forward with steady resolve, he promised to carve an open path straight to the nearest gate. Tears welled in the wounded soldier's eyes as the arrival of the legendary Sword Saint restored their hope. A confident grin crossed Zeland Adstrom's face as he declared their fresh squad the sharpest weapon on the field. Steel blurred into a lethal storm, cleaving through the charging lizards in a flash of blinding arcs. One fluid stroke split the next beast clean in two. His cold expression never wavered as the flashing blade dismantled rank after rank of beasts. The rising dust settled, revealing a wide, blood-stained corridor cleared all the way to the castle wall. Dumbfounded guards rubbed their eyes, stunned that an entire horde had been wiped out in mere seconds. Tremors rippled through the earth, snapping every soldier back onto high alert. Crackling lightning arced across the mist as massive black wolves lunged into view. The pack encircled the unit, prompting Zeland Adstram to tighten his grip and order his men to hold formation. High above the besieged capital, the grand palace of the Lambda Empire stood under a gloomy, overcast sky. Torn banners fluttered silently atop the towering stone spires. Couriers announced the northern gate was secure, setting the court abuzz with praise for the Sword Saint. Draped in a dark, fur-trimmed cloak, Empress Ceres Lambda swept into the council chamber. Ceres Lambda sighed over their mounting debts to House Adstram, before Vince reminded her that lacking magic left their troops crippled. Presenting the sacred relic of the saint, Vince urged its immediate use just as frantic screams echoed down the hall. A screeching horned bat monster crashed through the grand doors, sending panicked palace guards scattering. Vince pleaded with her ruler to fall back, yet Ceres Lambda drew her royal blade without hesitation. Lunging forward with practiced agility, the Empress slashed deep into the flying fiend. Her follow-up strike pierced the winged terror before it could recover. Slain on the spot, the lifeless beast crashed onto the stone floor before the stunned guards. Ceres Lambda slowly lowered her steel, drawing a ragged breath. Anxious soldiers rushed to her side, but Ceres Lambda offered only a faint, reassuring smile. Her knees buckled in an awkward stumble, forcing her to offer an embarrassed apology to her startled retainers. Vince begged her sovereign to rest, yet the girl stubbornly shook her head, insisting she could still wield a sword. Exhaustion took over as her legs collapsed under her, saved only by Vince catching her before she hit the flagstones. Straightening up with sheer willpower, she commanded her officers to locate every breach across the palace. Waves of savage beasts battered the great fortress as its outer defenses hung by a thread. Out on the front lines, Elthid Adstram's silver blade sliced through the air with ruthless speed. Every thrust was measured to the millimeter, dropping monsters before they could even register the swing. Watching with dropped jaws, the garrison whispered praises that the legendary Sword Saint was on their side. That devastating follow-up reduced the remaining carcasses to red mist, leaving the men frozen in awe. A sharp, commanding bark from the rear instantly jolted the gaping soldiers back to reality. Embarrassed guards stammer apologies, unable to tear their eyes away from the legendary warrior's mastery. Their commander barks at them to shut up and watch the flanks as enemies swarm toward the gate. Saluting on instinct, the guards lock eyes on something looming directly behind their captain. Oblivious to the danger, the captain keeps lecturing them that a breach means slaughter for every refugee in the shelter. A dreadful chill creeps down his own spine, forcing him to turn around. Panicked voices call out to the commander, choking on their own fear. Across the blood-soaked field, the Sword Saint carves through enemy ranks completely alone. One guard groans that the horde is endless, only for his comrade to snap back that Zeland Adstram could handle it all on his own. A piercing whistle cuts through the chaos, making the captain flinch. Terrified shouts erupt as a broken soldier bolts from the line, leaving the commander to order the remaining men to hold the gate. A massive horned wolf leaps from the brush, bearing razor fangs at the cornered men. Screaming in terror, a soldier collapses into the dirt and scrambles backward from the gaping jaws. Curses echo through the ranks as exhaustion crushes the remaining defenders. Strength fades fast, yet the long-awaited reinforcements from Zeland Adstram remain nowhere in sight. A colossal dragon descends upon the battlefield, carrying Elthid Adstram calmly atop its head. Stunned soldiers freeze in their tracks, shouting in disbelief at the legendary beast. Vaughn lunges forward in a blur, crushing the wolf's skull with a sickening crunch. Between those monstrous jaws, the horned beast is crushed instantly before the gaping guards. Shock leaves the captain completely paralyzed, his jaw hanging open. Elthid Adstram throws his hands up, shouting at the guards to hold their fire because they are allies. Weapon points gleam as an armed unit marches forward in deep suspicion. High in the castle window, two maidens watch the spectacle, whispering that the ancient prophecy has come to life. Ancient prophecies spoke of a silver-haired child riding a crimson dragon to save their land. A massive scaly talon crashes down from above, pulverizing the nearest fiends into dust. With one devastating sweep of his spiked tail, Vaughn hurls the surrounding monsters across the courtyard. Razor fangs tear through enemy ranks as fortress defenders watch in awe. Clinging tightly to a horn, Elthid Adstrom begs Vaughn to stop thrashing so violently. Smirking with pride, the beast shows off his overwhelming strength. Flight enhancement carried Vaughn all the way to the Lambda Empire, but the mana anomaly near the castle stripped the spell away. Soldiers warn Zeland Adstram to dodge the sweeping tail, but the father only shouts upward, checking if his boy can hold on. Calling out in desperation, Zeland Adstram searches for his son atop the beast. A tremendous gale from massive wings knocks another wave of monsters off their feet. Frozen in disbelief, the defenders stare at the overwhelming spectacle. Dread ripples through the ranks as guards fear the winged beast will turn on them next. Rushing onto the ramparts, a maiden recognizes the saint and his allies. A relieved smile crossed Ceres Lambda's face as she ordered her troops to back them up immediately. The commander reacted instantly, barking orders for the archers to hold fire on the dragon. Thrusting his arm forward, the officer ordered his men to drive the swarm straight toward Vaughn. A strange rumble caught Elthid Adstrom off guard, making him glance around in confusion. Combat flared violently around the massive red dragon as the Imperial soldiers shifted their formation. Bitterly admitting his helplessness without magic, Elthid apologized to Vaughn for leaning so heavily on him. The giant dragon offered a warm rumble in return, reassuring the boy that he loved fighting at his side. A startled shudder ran through Vaughn as an inexplicable lightness surged through his heavy limbs. Memories of past battles rushed back, and staring down at Elthid, the dragon recognized those familiar eyes and silver hair. High in the fortress window, Ceres Lambda recalled the ancient tale of the saint and a crimson dragon that spoke human tongue. Her gaze locked onto the chaotic battlefield below, struggling to process the impossible sight. Looking at the boy, Vaughn knew without a doubt that he was carrying the true reincarnator of the saint. Above the battlements, winged fiends continued circling the sky in hungry packs. A devastating blast ripped through the air, turning the flying monsters to ash one after another. The enemy onslaught broke under the fury, giving Elthid a clear view of their scattered retreat. Smirking with pride, Vaughn turned his massive head to ask his rider how he liked that strike. Genuine praise poured from Elthid, lighting up the great reptile's golden eye with joy. Both glided across the sky together, even as fresh horrors surged across the ground below. Giddy with flattery, Vaughn shook with boastful laughter so hard that his tiny passenger lost his balance. Blinded by his own ego, the giant forgot all about securing the little boy on his back. Small fingers slipped from the scales, sending Elthid plummeting toward the earth like a stone. Pure panic set in during freefall as he frantically tried to recall a levitation spell to cushion the drop. The ground rushed up fast, where hostile blades waited pointed straight at him. Snapping out of his freeze, Elthid gasped in dread as the deadly spikes drew near. Shutting his eyes tight, he screamed at the top of his lungs right above the sharp steel. At the final split second, Vaughn swept his scaled tail underneath and scooped the boy up. Relief washed over him only for raw momentum to launch him skyward once again. Right on cue, Zeland Adstrom sprinted across the blood-soaked field in his flowing black cloak. Arriving in the nick of time, the father caught his son securely against his chest. Heavy dragon claws slammed into the dirt an instant later, crushing the surrounding attackers flat. Letting out a breath, Elthid thanked his father with a weak grin, whispering that they were finally safe. Zeland Adstrom exhaled heavily, wiping cold sweat from his brow. The father tried to calm his boy, but Elthid stammered that danger was far from over. Tension snapped into frantic comedic bickering as they traded panicked complaints at full volume. Regaining his composure, Zeland Adstrom revealed a crucial pattern he had spotted across the battlefield. Pondering the battlefield, Elthid Adstrom notes that every time the dragon crushes a horde, the surrounding space subtly stabilizes. Zeland Adstrom nods in agreement, sensing that the spawn rate of incoming monsters is steadily slowing down. Back in the capital, his erasure magic purged both the fiends and the spatial mana, preventing them from ever returning. The mana anomaly is weakening, and Seren Sensei Adstrom immediately confirms her father's theory. A surge of realization hits Elthid Adstrom as the pieces fall into place. With fierce confidence, Zelund Adstrom declares they now have a shot at wiping out the entire swarm at once. Stripped of magic, their squad cannot pull it off alone and must combine forces with the Lambda Empire. Elthid Adstrom glances up at Vaughn, realizing no better chance will come if the dragon is suppressing the mana anomaly. Watching from a distance, Ceres Lambda begins piecing together their strategy. The strange lantern in her grasp catches Elthid Adstrom by surprise, and Ceres Lambda reveals it as her hidden trump card. This elven amplifier contains stored magical energy and functions even at the dead center of a mana anomaly. In sheer disbelief, Elthid Adstrom murmurs that such an invaluable relic is far too precious for him. Turning to Ceres Lambda with genuine concern, he presses her on whether she is truly willing to part with it. Ceres Lambda admits with a somber look that this is her last remaining catalyst after using the rest to evacuate her people. Held in reserve for the saint, the relic must now serve a different purpose as plans shift. A warm, reassuring smile graces her face in response. Beneath her gentle gaze burns an unyielding resolve. She vividly remembers Elthid Adstrom charging into the ruined capital to rescue helpless citizens without hesitation. Having no allegiance to this realm, yet risking everything across endless miles, Elthid Adstrom earns her complete trust. Echoes of a desperate comrade begging for an airlift into the skies ring through his memory once more. Driven by pure instinct, Elthid Adstrom commits himself fully to unleash every ounce of his power. An Imperial Knight anxiously asks Ceres Lambda why she hid the final catalyst instead of preparing for the rebel chancellor. With grim gravity, Ceres Lambda explains that this trump card is strictly reserved for absolute defeat. When the officer demands to know her battle plan, Ceres Lambda calmly volunteers to act as live bait to lure the horde away. High above the fortress walls, Vaughn descends with majestic fury, flashing a daring grin. Ceres Lambda promises to handle the rest, leaving the terrified soldier praying for a miracle. A terrifying tremor violently rattles the grounds, shocking both of them. Panicked soldiers scatter as the commander screams for a full retreat, ordering archers to suppress the encroaching beasts. Confirming the evacuation is complete, Elthid Adstrom mounts Vaughn and commands the red dragon into the sky. Ahead, the colossal summoning tower roars to life, vomiting fresh waves of grotesque horrors. Opening the assault, Elthid Adstrom manifests dozens of high-pressure water spheres around his frame. The torrential barrage obliterates the vanguard of charging lizards on impact. Shifting elements, he unleashes earth magic to crush the survivors beneath jagged stone monoliths. Every spell in his arsenal rains down relentlessly, denying the monsters any chance to breach the perimeter. Massive black wolves and hulking minotaurs instantly surge forward to replace the fallen, spawning endlessly. Wind and roaring flame fused under Elthid Adstrom's command, trapping the enemy horde inside a towering fire cyclone. The knights and their commander froze in awe as the saint rained catastrophic spells upon the monstrous army one after another. High atop the fortress wall, Elthid Adstrom saw the elven amplifier steadily pulsing, breaking the momentum of the charging beasts. Determined to crush the assault completely, he unleashed a merciless barrage of razor-sharp stone spears. Rushing torrents of water and a fierce tornado tore skyward right behind the barrage. Furious crimson flames erupted across the battlefield. Raising his hand with intense focus, Elthid Adstrom gathered all four elements into a single focal point. The air warped and shuddered as stone, water, wind, and fire fused into one cataclysmic elemental vortex. That immense mass of destruction plummeted straight toward the enemy lines. Gritting his teeth, Elthid Adstrom roared the command to strike. A blinding dome of detonations engulfed the field before the fortress, incinerating the monster vanguard to ash.